I'd like to call to order a very special convening of the Poulsbo City Council of January 7th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Those of you who can, please stand with me and we're going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight is very special for a number of reasons, not just the oaths of office you'll see being given to us by our longest serving municipal court judge in the city's history, Judge Jeff Tolman, who will administer the oath for myself and administer the oath for Councilman Tabor and our newest councilman, Michael Fitzpatrick. Gary McVeigh is unable to join us tonight. He's out of state. That would be the other position. But we also have a very special relationship to celebrate tonight, and we will all be party to it. The relationship between Poulsbo and the Suquamish Nation. If you all bear with me, we're going to go through the oaths of office and then move from there. So let us down to the floor, Michael and Doug and myself, for the oath of office from Judge Jeff Tolman.
What of this, Brandon?
Yeah, probably in front.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ed Stern,
I, Ed Stern,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified,
to assume the office of the city of Poulsbo mayor,
that I can legally assume the office of City of Poulsbo mayor.
that I will support the Constitution
I will definitely support the Constitution
and the law and the laws of the state of
and the
Washington
laws of the state of Washington
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
And I will faithfully and impartially
And I will faithfully and impartially
discharge these duties
discharge these duties
of this office
of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I'm proud to present Mayor Ed Stern. Mr. Tabor, Councilmember Tabor, be kind enough to raise your right hand. I, Doug Tabor,
I, Doug Tabor,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified
to assume the office
to assume the office
of Poulsbo City Council Position 6,
of the City Council Position 6,
and that I will support the Constitution and laws
and that I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of this office
of this office
to the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my ability.
I'm proud to present Councilmember Doug Tabor. Mr. Fitzpatrick, please raise your right hand. Please repeat after me. I, Michael Fitzpatrick,
I, Michael Fitzpatrick,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the state of Washington
that I am a citizen of the state of
and
Washington
the United States,
and the United States,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified
to assume the office
to assume the office
of City of Poulsbo Council Position 5,
of City of Poulsbo, Council Position 5,
that I will support the Constitution and laws
that I will support the Constitution and laws
of the state of Washington
of the state of Washington
and the United States,
and the United States,
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of this office
the duties of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I'm honored to present Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
And I present to you, City Council, your newly elected colleagues. It's at this time that we normally do a land acknowledgement, which has become, I'm proud to say, common of all of our public institutions, because we here as residents and our forebears as settlers exist on the land of the original Native Americans. And here in the North End, we're blessed with our closest and oldest neighbors, the Suquamish tribe. So we're honored tonight to have Chairman Leonard Forsman himself, rather than us deliver the land acknowledgement. I call it a land recognition. If you would come forward and honor us, Chairman.
Go around like this here. Oh, yeah, thank you. There. Huxley Hill. I'm Leonard Forsman. I'm tribal chairman of the Squamish tribe, and my ancestral name is Gwatwi. And just like to thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. As you know, we're in the exclusive territory of the Squamish people. We've been here for thousands of years. And we had an ancient village, and it was called an ancient village by our ancestors at the head of Liberty Bay. And there were many trails that led out from our original and one of our largest longhouses, the home of Chief Seattle and Chief Quetzalcoatl Man House. And there were trails that came down here to the place of Maples, as it was known. And this is where we continue, as our ancestors did, to harvest shellfish and salmon, and also maintain our government-to-government relationship with our neighbors. So on behalf of the Squamish tribes, I'd like to welcome you all here and congratulate all the officers that have just been sworn in, and appreciate the past work of previous councils, previous mayor, Becky Erickson, and also the fact that we have a long time MOU between the city of Poulsbo and the Squamish tribe, where we work out our we work at our challenges and our differences, and also seize opportunities together. So with that, I'll say, ahoy, Chad. I'm finished for now.
We're going to have a very special ceremony here to highlight and lift up and support that relationship that the chairman just talked about. When he refers to MOU, it's an acronym that stands for Memorandum of Understanding. The city of Poulsbo and the Suquamish Nation inked this memorandum of understanding on what then Mayor Donna Jean Bruce called a red letter day in the summer of 2005. And as late as that is, and close to us in date and time, that was the first time in the state of Washington history a city had recognized and embraced a relationship with its neighboring tribe, a domestic sovereign nation, the Suquamish Nation. And so we're here for that. And then if you notice on the picture that's now being put up on the screen, you heard our chairman refer to our longtime past and dear mayor, Becky Erickson, the longest serving mayor in Poulsbo history. This photo here of her and I is at the dedication and opening of this brand new city hall in November 2010. And it was a beautiful ceremony, and the Suquamish honored us quite unexpectedly with a special paddle. You see that in the mayor's hands. And in the middle of that paddle is a carving of a deer, and that is especially significant because, and I believe the chairman will be in a moment After a blessing, coming back up to the podium to explain, the deer represents the origin story of our oldest and closest neighbors, the Suquamish tribe. I'm not going to speak anymore because they're here tonight to share, but if I could call brand new city administrator Rob Gelder up to the side wall with me, we have something tremendous to share. The paddle that I was just speaking of, out of respect and our limited understanding, was mounted on this wall horizontally in a special box until just a few days ago. We found out that in Salish Sea custom, an oar, a paddle mounted to the side, represents potential aggression. If you think about a canoe coming to shore and all the paddlers have their paddles straight out, that means they can maneuver very quickly, as you could in a kayak or boat or anything. When a paddle is raised upright, as all the paddles are in the Suquamish Tribal Council chambers, represents peace and honor and relationship. Because if you can picture yourself coming in on a kayak or rowboat or canoe, you're vulnerable for a moment because everything is up out of the water. And that's how the various canoes come in during the paddle to, well, no longer a paddle to Seattle, the canoe days. Paddle to Seattle was the original in 1989. So here to celebrate at the restored relationship having come full circle with deeper understanding. Not that we ever arrived there. It's truly a journey. City Administrator Gelder, if you would help me to unveil the paddle.
Just getting the high sign from Kate here. So thank you for doing that. It's really very powerful. This paddle has quite a history. It was carved by the late J.R. Morissette, who we lost tragically, and you know that our prayers are with him and his family. And as he worked on this, we wanted to designate and represent an ancient story that happened near on Liberty Bay between here and Lamolo. And this was in the old times before the land was changed by the transformer Dokuba. And everything here was pretty much was human. And one of these people was named Deer. And he was working on a bone. And he was sharpening it. And he was kind of tired of this changer going around and changing everything. So he was working, sharpening this bone, and the changer turned himself into a human. And he walked up to the deer and he said, "What are you doing there?" And he goes, "I'm sharpening this knife, this bone knife, so I can kill the transformer, kill the changer." And he goes, "Oh, well, I got news for you. You don't know who I am. I am the changer. And now I'm going to change you into a deer, and you'll be food for the people." So he took his knife from him, he broke it in two pieces, and he said, "Go into the woods and be food for the people." And as he was running into the woods, he threw those two pieces of bone at his back, and they landed in his back of his hind quarter legs. And today you can still see that piece of bone when you're cleaning a deer floating around where the changer put it. So that's an ancient story that tells us a little bit about who we are. So with that, I'd just like to thank our tribal membership. We have Azure Beret, one of our council members here as well. I want to acknowledge her. We have Greg George, head of PME, and Diana Riggins, who's also on the board of PME here as well. And we're going to offer a little gift to honor this gesture and honor our new mayor and the new council members and also the present council members. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to our people. Go ahead, Chuck.
Poulsbo, Kaika Blue Seed Star, Suquamish Chud, Um, my name is Kaikablu or Kate Avakana. I'm a Suquamish tribal member. I work for the Suquamish tribe in the Cultural Resources Department. And we have some tribal members and friends here, and we just wanted to extend a song of gratitude and thankfulness to not only about rededication and honoring JR, but also for the new appointees and to thank you for your hard work that you will be doing going forth. God, we see how God, we see how
Before we finish, we do have a presentation here by Kate would like to make, and I'd like to acknowledge Sammy Mabe helped with this installation as well in his past roles on our tribal council. So Kate, you want to go ahead and take the microphone again?
I'm also an artist. And this is one of my prints. It's called Generations. And I know that we have connections here with Poulsbo, and through generations, I hope that we can uphold some of these friendships and keep that going. So this is for
Mayor Stern. All right. Okay. Appreciate it. Good luck to you.
I mentioned at the top of the meeting that in the summer of 2005, the city of Poulsbo and the domestic sovereign nation, the Suquamish tribe, completed the first memorandum of understanding in state history between a municipality and a domestic sovereign nation. I think today represents a second red letter day of renewal, of hope, of faith, of peace, of deeper understanding, cultural awareness, not only between the city and the tribe, but the people of our communities, where it must land and live in our hearts with tolerance and forbearance, and in the end, deep understanding. And those are the roots of peace and relationship and community we all strive for. And I would ask you to join me, my colleagues up on the dais, Britt Livedall, who's up on the screen, part of the council, help lift us to lift up our communities and truly bring the meaning of our oldest and closest neighbors to Poulsbo. We are that, the oldest and closest neighbors. The journey starts and commences again today. We never arrive. We must renew it in each generation, in each of us. And I thank you for all for being here tonight to honor my colleagues. I call out Michael Fitzpatrick, my brand new colleague to my left, Douglas Tabor, Doug Duell, Pam Crow, Rick Eckert, longtime North Kitsap School District liaison to the Suquamish tribe, has helped lift up the relationships through hard times, through pain, through joy. Tonight is a renewal, and I thank you all for being here. It is time for the prosaic business of the city of Poulsbo. I said we were a municipality, and here we go. But any of you who feel you must leave, please do so. Please stay. You honored us with your presence. You know what I might do is just before we approve the agenda and get on with our business, starting with Councilman Newell. Anything you'd like to add at this point, Councilman Newell?
It's a new year with a new mayor and a couple new council members, but as you mentioned, it's a renewal of who we are as a community and what we need to focus on going forward. So welcome to the job, sir.
Councilwoman Crowe.
Whether a challenging moment or a moment of blessing, it's always wonderful to have the room filled. And thank you, neighbors, for coming here. Beautiful and ready to dig in and serve alongside our new mayor and new council member.
Councilman Fitzpatrick. Keep this one short.
I just want to say thank you. It's a privilege to serve. Thank you for everybody who came. Especially I have a few people here from my church community. I see you all sitting back there. So thank you for everybody who has supported me and the rest of the people who are sitting up here with me. Thank you.
Councilman Eckert.
Yes, and congratulations, Michael, Ed, Doug. Thank you to Squamish for being here tonight. And Kate was a little humble. She's not just an artist. She's the artist from the lovely sculpture on the wall at the roundabout 305 in Johnson Parkway. So as you go through there, that the big art on the side there, that's Kate's. And yeah, just it's good that we were able to correct the paddle and do that right tonight. And I look forward to our next MOU meeting. And hopefully this time next year we'll be able to do another honoring with the tribe. Leonard left, but I was going to say haven't given up yet on the banners.
Councilman Tabor.
Congratulations, Ed. Congratulations, Michael, and congratulations, council, and thank you everyone for coming. This is a new year, and look forward to all the work we're going to do together.
And finally, and not least, Councilwoman Britt Livedall, who's up on the screen attending remotely behind me. And let me add, she was one of those on the council that lived through the bottom of a cycle that we all have to live through, whether it's a marriage, children, a job, and then that cycle improves and it lifts. And she's been there the entire time. If you would honor us with a word or two, Britt.
Thank you so much, Mayor Stern. I want to say congratulations to you and my colleagues, Doug, Michael, Gary, who I know was sworn in earlier. It's such an honor and a privilege to work with all of you, and I'm proud and excited to see what we're going to get done. I just couldn't miss these ceremonies and the blessing from the Squamish tribe because, as you mentioned, we've been through a lot together. So really, it's just wonderful and touching. And I'm not going to be able to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I wanted to be here for this. So thank you and good work to you all. And I'm going to go and enjoy Hawaii, another sacred place with Indigenous
Thank you,
people.
Councilwoman Livedall. Aloha.
Thank you. Mahalo. Good night.
We're going to move on now to agenda item number 5, which is the agenda review. The council has been provided with the agenda for tonight, both the business agenda. We have a study session agenda. We'll have public comments in just a moment for those of you who would like to address us from the podium. But first, I would point out that there is no change to the agenda tonight. So I would be happy to entertain a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. We'll go down the dais, starting with Councilman Newell.
Newell, aye.
Crowe, aye.
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
And we will move on. Now we have public comment. Public comment is an opportunity to address the city council. Oral comments will be made only in person. We do not accept them. We have a lot of people attending remotely, but public comment isn't accepted in that manner. You have up to 3 minutes if you would identify yourself by your name and where you live. And we're most pleased to have you come speak with us tonight. So calling for public comment from the podium.
Hello, and thank you for having this wonderful meeting tonight. Congratulations, Mayor Stern and the new members of the Poulsbo City Council. My name is Colleen Taylor. I've been a resident here in Poulsbo for 13 years. I have lived in the Northwest for my entire 74. However, I have two issues I would like to bring forth to you tonight. And one, I care very deeply about both of these. The first is I would like the City Council of Poulsbo and Mayor Stern, you, to write a policy and make it public that ICE is not welcome here in Poulsbo. We do not need ICE to police our citizenry. We are a peaceful people. We use our First Amendment rights, which all American citizens are given, and we do not need ICE to interfere with our constitutional rights. My father fought in World War II. He was in the Pacific. He did not serve in order to have our constitutional rights destroyed. It means a lot to me. I'm sure it means a lot to everybody in this room. Changing the subject. For 14 years when I was younger, I took a bus for everywhere I had to go, whether it was medical, grocery shopping, emergencies, whatever. There are many bus stops here in Kitsap County and in Poulsbo that don't have a little shelter for people to wait while they wait for the bus in the rain, in the snow, in the freezing weather, or in the hot sun. I would like Mayor Stern and the City Council to work with Representative Greg Nance, who was on the Transportation Committee in the state, to obtain funds to build shelters here, bus shelters here, for people in Poulsbo while they wait for the bus, because those are our most vulnerable populations. They are in wheelchairs, they are walking, sometimes they can barely even get to the bus stop. So those two things, ICE is not welcome, but public shelters or shelters for our bus, people waiting for the bus are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling for public comment again. If you would please come to the podium, state your name and place of residence, and you have up to 3 minutes to address the council. It is the practice of this city council to listen deeply, but we do not respond to the comments from the podium. Please do not misinterpret that. It's the policy not to respond, but all of us hear you deeply and loudly.
Thank you. My name is Pam Keeley. I'm from Lions Park, and I want to welcome Mayor Ed Stern and our new council members and our returning council members. And I want to say that this is a bittersweet day, difficult by what happened today in Minneapolis, but also encouraging by our new leadership. And your declaration of upholding the Constitution means a lot. So thank you, and we look forward to new relations between the community and our representatives. Thank you.
Calling for public comment. If you would please come to the podium if you have a idea, concern, or question you want to share with this city and its city council. We're most glad to hear it.
Mine is more, so thank you. I'm Curtis Vincent. I'm the president of the Sons of Norway. And I just wanted to thank you and all of you who are now the council members, and hope to see you around and hope to see you down at Sons of Norway, and maybe we can talk some more. All right, but thank you very much and good luck to all of you.
And again, calling for public comment. We welcome your comments tonight. If there's anybody who would like to share a question, concern, an idea, we're open to it. And again, we will have public comment at the very end of the meeting. That will be perhaps an hour or two from now. So then you get to enjoy us for the simple admission price of $0. So again, calling for any last public comment, if you would come to the podium and state your name and place of residence, and we're anxious to hear from you. Not seeing any further comment. And again, I'll note there will be an opportunity for public comment at the end of the agenda. We're going to move on now. We're going to move on to mayor's report and council comments. And this will have to do largely with the business of the city or the concerns of the council. So again, we're going to go up and down and now really focus on the business of the city. Councilman Newell. Councilwoman Crowe. I know we have some remarks from our brand new councilman, Michael Fitzpatrick, who's been most patient with me, and I appreciate that forbearance, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to take a moment to say hello and good evening to our Poulsbo community and to all those who have gathered here with us. It is a privilege to serve our town, and I want to start by thanking all the residents of Poulsbo for entrusting our future to this council and to me as a member of it. I'd also like to express my gratitude to my fellow council members who have been incredibly welcoming and generous in sharing your knowledge and experience with me to make this transition nearly effortless. Thank you. I'd also like to say thanks to our new mayor who held this seat before me and who has tutored me through each step of this process. I bear an heirloom of this seat. This was handed to me after my election. If you can't see this, this is a wine stopper in the shape of a billiard ball with the number 5 on the front. And so I'm guessing this will now be handed down for generations to come for all who sit in seat 5. Thank you, Mayor.
We're most pleased to have you on board, Councilman Fitzpatrick, and your wife, Mary, who's in the audience tonight. Very proud of you. And you ran a hard campaign and a good campaign, and we're so pleased you're on your way onto this dais.
Thank you.
Councilman Eckert.
Turn off your light. Did you want me?
Councilman Fitzpatrick has more to share.
I now know what the cue is for when he wants us to be quiet. Mayor Storn, I wanted to say that I look forward to solving the problems of our city together, and to all the council, I want to say it's an honor to work alongside each of you. I also wanted to say a thank you. This is really for the benefit of all of you, but I wanted to say a thank you to the city administrator, Rob Gelder, and to our whole staff here at the city. I want everyone here to know that they have been amazing in getting me oriented to the work ahead, bringing me into the various responsibilities that they have, and demonstrating what effective government and humble leadership looks like. It is an honor to be here to support all of you and the important work that you do. I have 2 more thank yous, Mayor, and then I will be done. The first is to my church community at St. Barnabas, many of whom were here earlier tonight, and some of who were watching online. It takes a village that believes in a person to accomplish goals, and I cannot say thank you enough to St. Barnabas for being such a strong advocate for the things that I have wanted to try. And for my last thank you, I was reminded of the classic Jim Carrey quote from the film Bruce Almighty, in which he says, "Behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes." And I have certainly given my wife plenty of reasons to roll hers. And yet there's no bigger cheerleader in my life. She's sitting in the far right corner there in the blue shirt. And I want to say thank you, Mary, for encouraging me to run and to serve this community. thank you again to the whole community for the privilege. Thank you, Mayor.
Well said, Councilman Fitzpatrick, and quite political of you to include your wife. We've made a note of that. We got a sharp one up here. Councilman Eckert.
Michael, you're good till unless he starts flicking the lights. Then you're in trouble. I just wanted Rhiannon, if you can, yeah. So I just wanted to share this real quick. So this postcard I got a couple weeks ago. This is a piece of artwork done by one of our North Kitsap students named Emma Rigel. That she drew this and then turned the drawing into postcards that she's selling to raise money for college. Now, thought it was lovely, and I just wanted to share it with you all. If anyone's interested, I could tell you where I got mine and direct you that way. I also wanted to share, I recently found out that I was selected to be a member of the Association of Washington Cities Education and Training Advocacy Committee, or Advisory Committee, sorry. So basically helping to plan training for city council members and mayors throughout the state. I applied for that and was accepted. And I've used their resources since I've come on the council significantly, and I wanted to be able to give back. And so I specifically reached out to Doug and Michael from the Essential Elected course in December. We're going to talk about that at the first meeting, but for any of the council or mayor, if you have suggestions, comments, criticisms, things you'd like to see in the education program at WWC, let me know and I'll take that to the meeting. And then lastly, I just wanted to share, it was kind of very apropos. So we meeting last night of the Braver Angels over in Bainbridge, which I was there with Michael, and our topic for the night was affordability. And so it was with our workshop tonight and the conversation that we had, really good conversation, hour and a half, talking about affordability with our neighbors from Bainbridge, the communities, even the one lady as far away as Whidbey Island. And it was one gentleman brought up and he started quoting some numbers of Bainbridge Island. And I was like, oh, we have all those numbers for Poulsbo in our packet for tonight's meeting. So it's like, it's good that, you're right on track. We just can't share the same numbers on Poulsbo and Bainbridge. But yeah, it was perfect timing and it's a great organization for anyone's interested to go and talk civilly with our neighbors, those we agree with, those we don't, and just try to heal some divides. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, and Councilman Eckert, for your involvement with the Association of Washington Cities. This city has a strong relationship statewide, and you uphold that, and we thank you for that. Councilman Tabor.
Excited for the new year. Lots on the docket. I'm excited for we have a workshop today, our first affordable housing. Looking at that issue and other issues that are often brought to city council. Many of them are out of our jurisdiction. And while I think our primary focus 90% of the time is running the city well, there's times when I'd like to advocate to our state representatives, to our federal representatives for other issues. I want to thank my fellow council members for entertaining my letter that's going to our state representatives on the issue, and look forward to the year and all that we're doing. It's exciting.
So I have a question for Councilman Tabor and Councilman Fitzpatrick. The rumors reached my ears that the younger generation, including Councilman Livedall in Hawaii, that the three of you are teaming up and thinking about a millennial caucus, millennial generation. Is there any truth to that the rest of us should be prepared for?
Our Wi-Fi password is avocado toast for the millennial caucus, if you're wondering. Yeah, no, it's just we were talking about that. It's representing this generation and the different needs and perspectives, and that's exciting. And yeah, and we were just kind of joking about it, but it happens naturally, right? That those from similar generations with similar perspectives and backgrounds can share ideals and concepts and get excited to work on behalf.
I think it's a tremendous idea to be able to represent in a focused way a different generation. And I'll be the first to provide you your public disclosure commission form to get registered. How's that? Just joking. My mayor's report, I'm going to keep it very brief, and all I'm going to do, I was invited by the city after the last election, specifically City Administrator Gelder, to pen a short message for our city employees and those who subscribe to the newsletter. And I'll just simply read from that to keep it short and sweet. A new year, a new mayor, but not such a new face. Most of you know me, or at least know of me. And likewise, I know most of you. But I will start the year getting to know you all a lot better. After all, we as a team have the next 4 years together. Notice I didn't add to the first sentence, a new administration, too. That's because our city council, my colleagues up here, and past city council members, and where I've spent the last 28 years previous to this evening, over largely the last 20 years of those, various councils would work methodically, carefully, and exhaustively to design the new city administrator position and role. And what would happen is one council would get this close and there'd be an election and we'd have new people. And rightfully they go, well, what's this idea? And we'd reset the clock back. And I see Carla Boughton, our longtime planner, shaking her head vigorously. Yes, because we had to reset that clock 3 or 4 times, hence 20 years. We may not be the smartest people in the world, but it shouldn't take 20 years to get any idea done. I want to be clear about that for the record. So to create that role, to provide for, and this is very important, the continuity, the predictability, and professionalism to the operation of our city. That's separate from the outcome of elections and other potential sudden twists and turns that can disrupt our city operations. That was in essence the idea, and together we will bring that idea to reality as was already begun to be implemented in 2025 under Mary Erickson and Rob Gelder. And I want to say tonight, turning to our city administrator, thank you, Rob Gelder, for a fabulous start. As our city advances into the 21st century, let us all work together to continue to make our little Norway the thriving, charming, and collegial community we all love and know. You have my pledge to work alongside each and every one of you to see to it we achieve just that over the next 4 years. And I thank you for your patience. And the first time I make a mistake, I want you to remember it looked good out of the gate. We're going to move on to board, commissions, and outside agency reports. And I'm going to start again to my left, Councilman Newell.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing to report. Councilman Crowe. Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Fitzpatrick, by definition. Councilman Eckert. Councilman Tabor.
Just a quick update for me.
Yes.
I'm attending a Port Commission meeting tomorrow night. So then our following meeting, I should have an update from that.
Excellent. I have one to share. Yesterday is what's called Super Tuesday. I am now seated on some additional boards that I wasn't on before. I think the one that's relevant I want to share with you tonight is the Public Health District. And in the course of that, we were reviewing the curve on flu, influenza, the RSV, which are really picking up. And of course, we have some of the top medical talent in the county, both on the board and on the staff of the Kitsap County Public Health District. A conversation started about epidemics and measuring and inoculations and the rate of inoculations and the take of it. And bear with me on that because it has direct bearing on this community, all the cities in the county. We know now the guidelines from the CDC have much relaxed those practices that were given and science and evidence based. And that is the guidance right now from the federal government. The concern, in addition to the general population, is that our largest employer in the county is the United States Navy, with I think over 25,000 employees and enlisted. Is that correct, Mr. Eckert?
Oh, for cruising ships, I think it's higher than that.
Higher than that. So bear with us on this. The concern was the Navy is an arm of the federal government. The Navy has its own medical and doctors, but they have to adhere to the federal guidelines and orders. And we are concerned, therefore, if there is a further relaxation of the standards that are evidence and science-based, that there could be increases in illness. This also has an economic impact because the schools have been adhering to standards, as Councilman Newell well knows, from his many years, not only with the Navy Central Kitsap School District. People make decisions where to live based on the quality of their schools for their children. It is an imperative. If we're going to have relaxed standards that we have no control over in this county and with our cities with that population, well-intentioned as the individuals might be, it could have a real impact. So there was some discussion on assigning the policy committee of the health district to perhaps looking at not just the measure of an illness spreading like a flu, an influenza, an RSV, but the spread of misinformation and its impact on populations. And so is that an epidemic in and of itself, not on a political realm, but on a real impact, whether it's inoculations or the otherwise the treatment of health? And what degree could our county be particularly susceptible to it under the new guidelines? We don't know, but I wanted to share that. And that was a pretty startling conversation as my welcome to the Kitsap County Public Health District.
Yeah, and what I would suggest is they could reach out. There is a public health officer at the Naval Hospital. It's been there a long time. But I will just say, flu shots is not mandatory for civilian federal employees, depending on where you work. So when I worked at the Naval Hospital, it was. Everyone that works at the Naval Hospital was required to get a flu shot as a condition of employment annually. But other locations are not under the same requirement, haven't been for as long as I've been around. But active duty is and has been. So if there's concerns about the standards changing, I would reach out to the doc at the hospital. Long time preventative medicine doc, retired Navy captain. He's been there for quite a long time and very, very knowledgeable. So he would be a good source.
Thank you, Councilman Eckert. I will pass that along to the staff of the health district, and we'll certainly be looking at that question. We're going to move on now to the city administrator report. And then
I have one question. I don't know, was 911, was that one of your meetings on Tuesday?
That's another board I'm on, CENTCOM 911.
Okay. It's not an urgent thing, but I was just going to suggest as those meetings, as you go forward, we had New Year's Eve. Two of the municipalities now in the county have banned fireworks going forward. 911's practice in the past has been don't call us for fireworks unless it's life or limb, injury type situations. With us and Bainbridge having now banned them and, only one day going forward legal for the next year. And from conversations that I've had, Port Orchard could be next. So I would say that maybe the CENTCOM 911 board needs to start taking up if that policy is going to change, because to say only call us if somebody's hurt or something's on fire, when more and more of their call area fireworks are not legal at any time, that policy doesn't seem to be appropriate anymore.
So you're referring to enforcement of the bans?
Enforcement, and not just bans. I mean, we know there are certain fireworks that are regularly used around that are never legal in the state of Washington. Anything that goes in the air is never legal. So CENTCOM's policy has always been don't call us for nuisance. But, anything that leaves the ground is not legal in the state of Washington. 4th of July, and, after a Seahawks game, you name it, folks like to use fireworks that they shouldn't be using at any given time. But with the two bans now in place between two of the cities, and like I said, I've heard rumblings, it could be 3. So I think it's something CENTCOM board should take up.
That's very thoughtful, and consider the message to be delivered, Councilman Eckert. City Administrator Rob Gelder.
Happy New Year, Council, and Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to keep my comments pretty short because your staff have created a really great workshop, our first in the series of 4 about housing affordability. So I definitely want to make sure that we have adequate time for that. And I know we do have some guests in the audience that are also, I think, eagerly awaiting that information. But other than that, I would just say to get ready. The short legislative session is going to open on Monday, the 12th. Things will be fast and furious, and there are definitely some, excuse me, some cleanup bills that we need to hopefully get some traction on, especially when it comes to some of the additional requirements around sales tax collection that definitely impact our parks and recreation programs, et cetera. So as with all good sessions, the first one they pass bills, the second one hopefully they clean and tweak and fix them. And let's hope they do that again this year. So thanks.
That's it, Rob. City Finance Director and Assistant City Administrator, Debbie Boer.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know that our RFP, request for proposal for software, will be published on our website. Official issue is next Monday. And it will go through acceptances are coming back around February 20th. And so we have also notified several software companies that would fit in our area of implementing, and they are being notified that their RFP is being issued. So we are moving forward with that, and might want to take a look if you're interested. There's a lot of requirements on it. So thank you.
That's exciting news, Debbie. It's been well over 20 years since we bought the existing package, albeit it's been upgraded. I know, Doug, you've often talked about our modeling and finance reporting, and this can only be a positive, City Administrator, moving forward, not only in the way we display information, but the timeliness of it. The corollary being the Finance Department might need a lot of resources to migrate over and stand up that, and I'm cognizant of that, as are my colleagues. So we look forward to working with you shoulder to shoulder on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Public Works Director, Diane Lenius.
Just one quick reminder. We do have a solid waste survey that is out for citizens to provide their input on solid waste. That survey went out in the newsletter for January. It's also on the home page where the newsletter resides. And it has a quick 15 questions, and we appreciate the input of citizens as we work with a consultant to develop a request for proposal for outsourcing solid waste. And that will be open until the 22nd of January, if anybody hasn't had a chance to do it.
Thank you, Diane. And I believe there's also on the utility billing linkage to responding to that. And again, I think Diane explained it well. We are actually considering, after many, many, many years, taking our solid waste department, those are the garbage trucks that show up regardless of holiday, regardless of weather, they're there same time every week, outsourcing that. To understand that right now we have some of the highest solid waste rate charges in the county. We're cognizant of that. In order to spin off, there might be some impact, but we're hoping downstream, if it weighs properly, keeping it within the city or moving it out to a private source will be to the advantage of the ratepayer, you, the citizen, or we're not doing this. And so what Diane is doing is asking for your input at this point, and that'll be available through January the 22nd. You are the voters on solid waste, and we want to hear from you. Thank you, Diane. City Parks Director, Jeff Osme.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council and community members. Just a couple updates. We started this year off charging out of the gates. So I'm going to share something pretty neat that this is today on your screen. On our senior programs, we have free senior programs. Council helped fund a position that will be going out a little later this year for having someone to help coordinate this. Give me just 1 minute here. Where's the little button? Is it this one? Oh, okay. Come on, technology. All right. This is emergency management coach, as he's lovingly called in the city, going over response for with our community members. We had a packed house over at the rec center, so that's over a dozen people in our room, and highly engaged with Dan Schoonmaker, learning about what the city is doing for emergency response. About an hour later, we had 48 seniors. It was incredible for our free fitness programs. We had people outside of the room standing out of the doorway, and City Administrator Rob Gelder was there and witnessed this too. And we invite council to come and join, and Mayor, of course, yourself, which is fantastic. And then the last little part of the slide is, this is the numbers of participant hours for just our senior programs. This is all aligning with the data, and we're very thankful for council's support. We're incredibly thankful for our partners' support as well, because we couldn't do this without many partners, such as Fishline, such as our tribal partners, KRL, number of others. The other updates I will share are, we received a grant of $1,000 from the Poulsbo Rotary Club for the Rob Park P patch, to rebuild the P patch. We have a sub task force for that. So we're going to be kicking that project off here in the spring. We also have, we're still looking for Park and Rec commissioners, tree board board members, and at least one person for the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. So if you know of anybody who would like to serve our community, please have them visit our website or just refer them to me. I'm happy to help them. And then lastly, just a fast update on our special event coordinator. I give a big shout out to our wonderful HR team and our wonderful clerks who did phone screenings this week. And we will be doing interviews likely next week and getting someone on board here soon. It is a busy time and we're firing on all cylinders.
Jeff, quick question. Back to your first point on engagement with senior citizens, the programs you've been standing up and the tremendous response they've gotten. Most of our seniors are familiar with the senior center downtown that's been here in one form or another for over 60 years. And a number of us attended over the Christmas holiday, along with Councilman Newell. I forget who else was there. Their open house, I believe they're 56 in that location. Can you explain the relationship of the programs we're standing up, the senior center organization, and how those two work?
Of course, Mayor. And I was able to join that same open house, and it was really well attended. Over 40-something people. It was phenomenal. So with the North Kitsap Senior Citizen Center, they have members who sit on our senior task force. It's a citizen advisory committee that helps collaboratively. We can do more in serving our community together by working with one another. They are a core partner. When they put their newsletter out and we put our Senior Connections quarterly newsletter out, we talk with one another to make sure that if you live in Poulsbo or you're visiting Poulsbo or you're in the surrounding area, you can pick up the Senior Connections newsletter, and it's a one-stop shop for everything that's happening that's related to seniors with the City of Poulsbo, with North Kitsap Senior Citizen Center, with Kitsap Regional Library, with the Suquamish Tribe, with our new partners at Pickleball Kingdom who just came on board, as well with Poulsbo Historical Society. Those partnerships are growing, and together we're able to offer more. So we want to make sure we're not competing, that we're collaborating on these services. And it's only going to grow in collaboration.
Any questions from the council on senior programs? Not seeing any. Our own planner, Heather Wright.
Good evening, Mayor, council members of the public. I have two updates for you tonight. One is about our current land use applications. Usually this time of year, we slow down quite a bit, but that hasn't happened for planning and development review. We had two applications come in, one for multifamily on First, just on Christmas Eve, as well as receiving an application for a gastro and liver clinic just east of the Perk site. I also wanted to share that we have two people poking around for a float sauna out in Liberty Bay. It remains to be determined if that'll be allowed under our shoreline and land use code, but I just thought I'd share the news. Outside of current land use applications, we do have our third parking meeting this Friday for anyone that wants to come and share with the Chief of Police, myself, and Laz Consulting, or Laz Parking Services, excuse me, any of their concerns, thoughts about downtown parking, and that you may have noticed there are new signs, or our signs have been modified so that if you're an employee, there are now E's on some, but not all of our signs where employees can park, and the hours of enforcement have been added to the sign, so it's clear that it's from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I know Mike's team's been working hard on making those changes. So again, that meeting Friday is from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for those that want to join right here. Thank you.
Heather, can you share with us, I saw a lot of eyes get big. What is a floating spa on Liberty Bay?
So maybe you've seen them out in Lake Washington, but essentially it is a vessel that holds a sauna that floats out on the bay, and people can rent those hourly groups rates. They're popular on the east side, and I'm not aware of any coming our way. We're the first where I've seen such an inquiry, and it's a popular Norwegian pastime. So it's kind of fitting for our community.
I see our fire chief in the audience vigorously nodding yes, and I know he recently got married. He may be among the first to be floating, but I don't want to go further with that subject. I see our deputy chief, police chief, Lee Wheeler. Would you address us, deputy chief?
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, community members. On behalf of Chief Harding, who's been sick the past few days, wanted to pass on a quick update on the derelict vessels from DNR. We received on December 11th, $23,530 reimbursement. So that's been taken care of, and want to make sure we give that update.
Initiative of the police department. I believe our police department was one of the first in line for the Department of Natural Resources, which has a budget statewide this big, but we were there. So congratulations, Lee, and please pass that along. And do warn Dave Hausberg that he might see new derelict vessels with people floating in them, smiling a lot. I'm concerned about the impact of that.
Absolutely will do. Thank you.
And turning to my left, City Clerk Rhiannon Fernandez, no report. And our Information Technology Director, Brooks Rendell.
Just real quick, good evening, Council, Mayor, and citizens. We are still moving forward with Poulsbo.gov. So cityofpoulsbo.com will be becoming Poulsbo.gov. We will be making some announcements in the future very soon about email addresses changing. And as website changes happen later in the year or first part of next year, we will have our website be poulsbo.gov as well. But everything will redirect. We will maintain cityofpoulsbo.com, so everyone will still be able to get with us either way. So just wanted to give an update on that.
Thank you for hard work. As soon as you get one, it's whack-a-mole in IT, isn't it? You get one thing fixed and the technology changes, then something breaks. Appreciate your hard work, Brooks. We're the consent agenda. There are no items under the consent agenda, so we're going to move on to the business agenda under item 11. The first 11A is approval of dump truck purchase. And again, I'm going to turn to my new colleague while his wife's still in the. Would you share the significance this evening? What helped motivate you to run for city council and what this issue means to you?
Yeah, this might come as a surprise to Mike, but well, he knows a little bit about my background. So I'm the son of a retired Caltrans worker, served 38 years, got his start plowing snow, using a snow blower, and managing a lot of these trucks over the course of his career. And if you've ever been out in a snowstorm, you've probably valued being behind one of these, but the rest of the time they are part of the silent machinery of a good city that makes it work and keeps us accident free.
And should the council decide to award the contract that Mike Lund will walk us through, Councilman Fitzpatrick has asked if we might consider reserving him making the motion in recognition of his father and his inspiration of running for council. So on that happy note, Mike Lund, would you walk us through the new dump truck purchase? I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we've been searching for a new dump truck for a couple of years, and unfortunately, with every time we get close, prices would go up and get out of reach, and so we finally circled the wagons and we got it squared away here. So the truck we're trying to replace is this beauty right here. We bought it in 2001. It was a surplus WashDOT truck. It's a 1989 International, so WashDOT wore it out for 25 years, and we bought it and wore it out even more for another 25 years. So it's time. It served its purpose well, but like I said, it's worn out. This is a similar version of what we're going after. The truck that we're going after isn't built yet. It's 8-month lead time, but it's a 2026 International dump truck. It'll have an 11-yard adjustable plow on it. It'll have a 12-yard or a 12-foot sander in the back. Interesting with the sander that we bought for this truck is it's got a pre-wet system, so we'll actually be able to squirt de-icer on the sand as we spread it out and help bite in. You know, this in this area, the plow and sanders, you know, very small portion of the dump truck. We use the dump truck for a lot of other things, but boy, when we need it, we need it. And if anybody paid attention today, it was snowing this afternoon about 11 o'clock. So,
I know.
yeah, so it's coming. So we're rolling there. So as I said, we've been having some challenges finding it. We got it. All of the equipment is on state bid contract. The cab and chassis is through RWC Group for $134,588. And then the dump box, so when you buy a truck, you buy the cab and chassis, then you got to buy the dump box, and then all the other. It's not a one-stop shop necessarily. So then the dump box is from OSW Equipment for 115,000 and some change. Sander is from OSW Equipment for 52,000, and the plow is from OSW Equipment for 19,000. Total package price for the whole thing is 322,435.51. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, council? I'll start with Councilman Tabor.
So I don't have to look back at agenda items because approving this was the first thing I ever voted on in April 2024.
Yeah.
So
like I said, it's been a while.
It's just a great example to show how slow government moves, Mike. So maybe we'll see this dump truck in another 2 years.
Councilwoman Crowe.
Okay, help me and refresh my memory on something. I think that you'd given us a spreadsheet that had all of the inventory of your items that you used on the facility side. Maybe that was a different department, but
No, I
do you
probably did.
recall that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we
and
have-
I cannot recall if that spreadsheet indicated, you know, when something was purchased and if and the you know, how old it was and when it was expected to retire and rotate out. I can't recall. Did it have that on there, or is that a wish list that I'm trying?
Well, yes and no. So
Okay.
the our fleet maintenance schedule definitely has when it was purchased and all that. We're just the last few years starting to work into a good replacement schedule on stuff. So it doesn't have
Okay.
that spreadsheet didn't have when they're replaced, but we're starting to work into that schedule.
Okay, so that will be shared with us. That is to come.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right then. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Councilman Eckert.
No, I was just gonna say, as somebody who graduated high school in 1989, I know how worn out I am, so I'm sure this is time for this truck to go. So I look forward to getting us a new truck.
89, you were a freshman when I graduated.
Do I see any other questions before we raise the motion? And I think if you study what the motion is in your packet,
So,
it's only yes, Mike.
Let me jump in here. So I didn't realize that when I did the motion, when I did the packet, I was planning on being at workshop and it was going to go to council. So I've revised the motion and it'll be.
I was going to say, this is a 9-word motion in my packet,
Yes.
including the word approved.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's going to be adequate for the sites of this purchase.
So I have a sample motion on the screen for you.
That's excellent. Any other question on the motion on the table? Otherwise, I'm going to turn to Councilman Fitzpatrick and see if he's willing to make said motion.
Well, I wanted to just mention that I actually sent your entire packet to my father to review the truck, and he said, "Nice truck, you need a driver?" So, good job.
Perfect.
Make a motion. I move to approve the purchase of the new 2026 10-yard dump truck with snowplow, sander package as presented with the RWC Group. Total for cab and chassis, $134,588.17, and the OSW equipment and repair. Total for dump truck, sander, and plow, $187,847.34.
Thank you, Councilman Fitzpatrick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Tabor. Do I have any other questions on the motion on the table? Not seeing any. I'm going to call Councilman Newell.
Newell, I.
Pearl, I.
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
And the motion passes. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you all.
And the next item is 11B in our agenda and packet. It is the Poulsbo Events and Recreation Center building purchase order for approval. And that is going to be spoken for by Josh Rains, Diane Linius. Nice handoff. Josh, would you lead us through?
I will. Good evening. Yes, thank you. We're here tonight for our next exciting step in the PERC project to make our next investment, and as we approach closer to construction here. So we're talking about our buildings that we're working on, prefabricated buildings. And I'll highlight here where these buildings are and what they are. So there are 3 buildings that we're looking to purchase from Romtech. We have a large pavilion just north of the restroom building, and then we have the restroom building itself, and then we have the small pavilion as well. So in the contract, you won't see the alternate storage maintenance building. They have done some preliminary work on that, and should we award that during the construction project, we will come back for a change order with Romtech to actually purchase and order that building. However, they are still moving forward on their own accord to design that building such that we can include it in the bid package as an alternate. So the process is to purchase through KCDA, which is the King County Directors Association. It's been what that association does is works to put these different outfits through the bidding process. So they're pre-vetted so we can go through them to select directly some of these different vendors. And so we have to use this process before, you might remember, on the Rotary Morrow Park for the playground equipment. So it's a similar process as that. And then Romtech will design and assemble the package of the materials, and they'll deliver the materials to the site, and then our contractor will actually construct those buildings. So the contract that was included in your packet was reviewed by the city attorney, and then we did have some suggested revisions, and we worked closely with Romtech, and they were really great to work with through that process and negotiating those changes. And so hopefully in your teal packet, you'll see the updated contract that has that language that was changed highlighted. And so just a summary of those changes were to clarify some of the deliverable formats of their drawings, increase the delivery inspection time once it's actually delivered to the site. We clarified our local building code requirements because they had some building code stuff in there that didn't apply to Poulsbo. So we updated that. And then when we looked at the term and conditions, we reduced some of the termination costs if the contract were terminated by the city. We don't plan to go there, but again, it's a contract that the attorney provided some input on. And then we clarified some responsibility during delivery that would be on Romtech if there was any loss of material or something missing or broken during the delivery process, that they are responsible for that. Also clarified some delays that would have implications if they're delays by the customer only, which is us. And then also changed our delivery method of our notices such that we receive them directly via mail or certified mail and not allow them to be via email. And so the total amount is there of just over $1.1 million, and that's for the full design and assembly of the building package and delivered to the site, like I said. And then the construction costs will be included in our construction contract with our contractor. And so with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I do have a sample motion up on the screen that is also included in your teal folder.
Well, you beat me to it, Josh. I was going to call my attention to my colleagues that and are you ready for this? It's a new year. It's in our blue folder. It's been 23 years of teal, I think, but it's always felt blue to me. So I'm going to try blue and see if that works or not. Let's see.
Blue, got it.
So in your blue folder tonight is the upgraded sample motion, not the one that was in the original agenda packet, and some additional explanatory material. I have a question for Mr. Newell. We'll start at that far end. Doug?
Hey, Josh, Diane, just a handful of questions. Just for clarification, this is coming as a materials package and therefore assembly is done here. And so L&I is not inspecting the building in the factory. Effectively, your building inspector will inspect it during construction.
That's correct. These packages will come in for a building permit from us and will be inspected by our building department.
Got it. Makes it easier. Sometimes when they come in prefab, L&I is the long point. Going to Long Point, schedule, how firm are these guys going to be able to deliver, or I've rephrased it. When will they deliver, and is there any concerns about delaying our general contractor? I mean, talk schedule on how they perform, please, sir.
Oh, sorry about that. I messed that up somehow.
Go back to your slide.
Oh, there we go. Okay. There, that works. No, I'm glad you asked the question. Thank you, Councilmember Newell. So that's the reason we're really here tonight, because schedule is essential and we need to get them moving forward and on track with the design and then start assembling all the materials for the delivery. So right now we do have them slated for delivery in June. And so knowing that delivery schedule, if we can get this approval and keep them on track, we will write that into the contract of the bid documents of what our anticipated schedule is, so that the contractor's fully aware and they can prep the site and get ready for that delivery of the buildings.
So will you be, and I don't want to get into the mechanics of your RFP, but assuming whoever we award the general contractor to for the perk, they're responsible for the site work. And who's doing the coordination between Romtech and the general contractor? Is it the city, or are we saying it's the general contractor to coordinate delivery, stowage on site?
Yeah, we haven't quite gotten into all the details like that. So part of that process will be coordinated also with KCDA. So since we are going through them, they will, if there's any change orders with Romtech or anything like that, they will manage that. But we will write that the contractor is to coordinate with Romtech for actual delivery and offloading of the material.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Eckert.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify quickly. The purchase agreement total does not include sales tax. Had that caveat, and I'm assuming that's because it's from Oregon, which there is no sales tax. But then the motion and our item does say include sales tax. But as Rob alluded to, or in his comments earlier, sales tax is something that's fluctuating right now with the legislator. So do we have this amount, I'm assuming is one that you came up with that you don't anticipate needing a change order on, we're comfortable with this number now, or is that your best guess and we may have to?
Yeah, the number right now is at our current tax rate. However, we have put in there that we can sign a change order up to 10% of the contract value in the motion as well.
Okay. Hey.
Any other question from council? I will comment. When we look at the bond issue in the next agenda item, the largest share of that is for the Poulsbo Events and Recreation Center. This is really the first tangible step. Much credit to Diane and Josh. And I would be remiss not to call out one more time Carla Boughton, who is now the planner for the city of Sequim. She babysat this project from infancy and toddlerhood to naughty adolescence. But as you can see, everyone else has pursued it the rest of the way. Thank you for your faith and hard work, Carla Boughton. So we have
I'd be happy to make a motion.
I would accept a motion happily.
Move to approve the materials purchase with Romtech through KCDA in the amount of $1,115,629.47. Purchase amount including tax for the buildings on the Poulsbo Events and Recreation Center project, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement on behalf of the city. Move to authorize the mayor to sign change orders on the Romtech agreement up to 10% of the contract value.
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Tabor. We have a motion on the table. Any question on the motion or the project? And not seeing any, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Newell.
Newell, aye.
Pro I.
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
And it passes. Very good. And we're going to move right into an associated topic, but a much bigger level. This is ordinance 2026-01, bond ordinance for 2000. I'll stay with the other nomenclature, 2026 debt issue. And I want to note for the record, if this is fully funded, this will be the largest issuance of debt in the city's history, of which over 15 million alone is for the various phases of the Poulsbo Events and Recreation Center. I think we have bond counsel and other representatives, underwriter and rest. So I'll turn it back over to Debbie Boer, our finance director.
Good evening, council and mayor. You guys have a very involved first meeting of the year. We have spent a lot of money and are continuing to plan to spend more money. So these are pretty high ticket items that you've had your first opportunity to approve. So this is the 2026 debt issue, that delegation ordinance that is on the agenda tonight, and hoping for approval to move forward with a debt issue that we've talked about for several months to fund the projects. So introducing who we're here is who has been working on this from the city. It's been the city administrator, Mr. Rob Gilder, myself. The senior accountants I have brought in to follow through the process, our public works director, the park and rec director, and our Triple H director. They are all part of the process because they are funding the projects that they have all been involved in. Sitting next to me is we have our financial advisors. One of them is Scott Bauer. He's from the Northwest Municipal Advisors, and they have been working through the process and are very aware of the project as well. And then we have from Bond Counsel, Foster Garvey, Stacy Amasaki, and we've worked with her for several years too as well. And not present is, we'll bug him later about it, but Justin Monway, our bond underwriter, who will be selling the bonds when we go out for the issue. So I can let them pipe in with any of their expertise along the way. So what you have upcoming dates is our preliminary official statement. The second draft was circulated on January 7th. This is including the dates that we're moving forward on. I didn't include the work that we've already done. There's been quite an extensive amount of work and review already been in process. We are doing a ratings call with the rating agency that will be with Standard & Poor's. And so we first do a practice call that's coordinated, and then we go into the official call. And this is one at the city where we have several parties participate. We have an elected official, we have the department heads, and we have myself and a couple people from the finance department, and we are led by our experts here to get through the process. And a lot of questions, a lot of evaluations of our policies. And what they do is they rate the ability for the city to pay back the bonds, and the higher rating, the lower interest rate the cities will pay. So that's why it's been very advantageous that the cities maintained a very good level of reserves and financial practices and policies. They examine all those. They will look at our newspaper to see anything going on to make sure we've disclosed things. And they will look at our budgets and our financial statements, which are both certified by our National Government Finance Officers Association. We are expected to receive our ratings on January 27th, and then we will post the POS, the preliminary official statement, on January 28th. Some of us are very lucky. We get to read those several times, and some of us are even luckier and get to write it several times. So we use the experts for that. And then the intention of selling the bonds is on February 4th. They will be pricing them out. And we do have some flexibility, so we continue to monitor the market. And I will let Scott speak to that if he'd like to. We will publish a final official statement on February 9th. And that is for any of the investors who may want to purchase those bonds and support this project and invest and gain some interest earnings for themselves. And the closing is hoping to happen on February 19th, and we will receive all the proceeds at that time. So one of the projects that we are planning to cover with this debt issue is, it seems odd that we are paying for the Nordic cottages The $2.5 million was to be funded by debt, which will be supported by our affordable housing dollars. We did do a reimbursement resolution with the intention of issuing this bond because we are partnering all of these projects to get the best rate and the best value for our dollars, and as well as consolidate the services and make our work a little bit easier to get through one issue as opposed to three issues. So the debt payments are going to be funded from our sales tax collection, that 0.1% for affordable housing specific to those needs. And the annual debt payment for this, and we estimated it about a 4.5% interest, is $192,000. And the other funding for the projects is reserves, is built into the affordable housing taxes. So those are also restricted reserves. The other project that we continue to work on, this is, I think we're getting to one of the final phases of our Knoll Road project, which is now greatly underway. So we'll also be doing a reimbursement to the city for the funds that we've expended. A lot of Knoll Road is funded by grants, but however, the city is contributing their real estate excise tax dollars, their impact fees, and this debt issue for $2.5 million. The annual debt payment, again, is about $192,000. And again, the funding sources are grants, real estate excise tax, and traffic impact fees. Keep wanting to hit the wrong button, sorry. I'm left-handed. It's a little different for me. So the next one is the big one we just talking about, and you just approved to bring a building into this project, is our Poulsbo Event and Recreation Center, or quietly, or referred to shortly as the PERC. We are funding the entire purchase of the building at $15.6 million. But the city is taking the debt on under our debt capacity, and we are obligating this. However, the debt payments, we have an agreement with our Kitsap Public Facilities District, and they are funding about 64% of the entire project. And that means from the design, which they're funding at 100% now, and then they will fund the debt payments coming back to the city on annual payments, and that interlocal agreement spells all that out. Yes.
Question, Debbie, on the public facility district, how will we be receiving that money? Because time value of the money and the rest of it, how will we receive it and apply it against the indebtedness?
It will come to the city in an annual distribution, and that was all written into the interlocal agreement. So they have their distribution schedule spelled out, and it's based on this debt issue amount that we're going forward. And so that was part of the amendment that Diane brought forward when it was approved. And what makes up the funding for the debt payment again is the amount from the Kitsap Public Facilities District, real estate excise tax, and then city revenues. So the REITs continue to fluctuate what we built into that for several years to cover those payments. And so some years we may need some of the reserves that we're building in that. And remember, we are obligating ourselves for 20 years. So we are making this affordable for 20 years and funding that with the city resources and that. So the annual debt payment for this is about 4.5%, about $1.2 million. What we are also including in this debt, and we may not, it will depend on if it's advantageous to the city. It has to be a savings percentage, and we've left that in the ordinance for us to decide at the time that the interest market and rates are going, is whether we'll be doing a refunding. This is our 2015 issue that we used to pay for the city hall. And the hope is that we will stay the same, well, not the hope, we will stay the same payment term. So we will end this in 2033. But however, the hope is we have savings through a lower interest rate than what we originally issued this debt at. So the current payments are about $390,000, and these are all funded from the general fund revenues that we collect. And so we will determine the net savings at the time of sale if we will go forward with that. And that's the ordinance allows us the flexibility to make that decision dependent on the market. And so the target savings is hopefully nothing less than 3%. That's our overall reaching goal. So I wanted to tell you what the spend down requirements are, because we funded some projects that have already been completed. And Stacy here is the expert on arbitrage, so she can correct me on whatever I'm not stating correctly. But we have this on, and so then we are funding the projects going forward. And so the spend down requirements is, I put a little chart offline. So in 6 months, if we spent everything within 100%, we would be clean of arbitrage. And what arbitrage is a penalty by the IRS that we pay. And what they say is you can't borrow money and earn interest earnings and not use it for the government purpose that you've determined. And you have to require it within our timeframes in order to avoid that arbitrage rebate, I guess is the official term. So 6 months, I don't think we'll meet that 6-month window. So then we go down to the 18th month exception. We have to spend 15% within 6 months, and then 60% of that issue within 12 months, and 18 months, 100%, and we avoid that rebate. The 24-month exception, and this is only for construction issues, which this all falls and covers, is just this 6 months is 10%, 12 months is 45%, 18 months is 25%, and 24 months is 100%. And I feel comfortable in the city, and I've worked with the engineering department that we will be able to meet those arbitrage requirements. You have anything to add, or is it all covered pretty well?
Again, the expectation is when you issue tax exempt debt, that you will spend the proceeds within 3 years. And then if you spend it within one of these exceptions, you get to keep any investment earnings above that yield on bond.
And just so you know, when we get the proceeds, we put them into a separate account at the local government investment pool to track those investment earnings separately. Because if we did not meet this criteria, then we will hire a specialist, because it's very complicated and way beyond my intelligence level to calculate that. And they will support that calculation. So this was added at the last minute at the request of Councilmember Newell, which I think is a very good request. This is our debt capacity based on if we were to go, if the amounts that we are issuing for debt. And so you will see, excuse me. So you'll see these are all of our issues. The first one is our local program that is funding our vehicles for the police department, which we probably will be going out because they're getting to the end of that line. We set up that replacement recycle, and we're working with the city administrator and the police department on the best way to fund vehicles, because we are getting to the time we're gonna have to do another round of replacements. We have the bonds outstanding, and so those will be paid off very shortly. And then the refunded amount, this was issued in 2021. We've already refunded the 2012 issue. And so we have an outstanding balance just of that portion of $711,000, and that will be complete in 2031. The 2015, which is what we are talking about refunding, is the remaining amount, the $2,620,000. And the Knoll Road issue, which we issued in 2021, that paid for the public works property, the tenant improvements that we've made there, and also the Knoll Road issue for that first phase of it, or second phase that we did. And looking at the new issue, if we were to go out for the 21,380. So what that does is they limit the amount that you will go out for debt, for general obligation debt, which is backed by your revenues, tax revenues coming into the city. So based on our 2026 assessed valuation, which was about $3.2 billion, or is it trillion, dollars, and you are able to go out for a combined debt between voted debt and non-voted debt of 0.025. And that gives us a combined debt total, our maximum capacity of $80 million. And then what you do is you take away the balance available of the amounts that we've already issued. So if we were to go out for combined debt with general obligation debt, we would have a maximum amount of about $52 million. Going out for the general obligation debt for the non-voted, you are limited at 0.015 of your assessed value. And so you can see that amount changes every year as your assessed value changes. And then the non-voted debt, once we look at what we've issued, because everything above that we've issued is non-voted, we have zero voted debt at this time out, will leave us an available balance of about $19.5 million going forward. So that is for any future projects, as we pointed out, is when we've talked about possible road projects, the public works yard, we have to keep in mind the debt capacity. And I will say, is like any homeowner or purchase of a homeowner, we may have the capacity, but we also need to look at the affordability of meeting those payments. So it's more than just the capacity. And so tonight, as we're hoping to pass the ordinance delegating the finance director and or the city administrator to move forward and secure lending with a not to exceed amount of $24 million, because that is inclusive of the refunded amount, and an interest rate of no more than 5.5%. And I did question the 5.5% because I felt that was a little high, and my intention is not to issue anything above 5%, but we want to have that availability there. And when we talk to our underwriter, and Scott can probably better answer to what's been happening in the market, I think they're seeing things less than 4.5%. So we feel pretty secure with that. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Debbie's right. The rates, the all-in rates we've been seeing are closer to 4% these days. We won't be locking in interest rates until we actually sell the bonds in February. But again, interest rates have been trending in the right direction, certainly away from 5.5% and 4.5% at this time.
And the good news is we have the flexibility to, that's why we're using the specialists. They know, the experts, they know what the market is, and they can direct us if we have to bump it out a week or go in that direction. So we are ready to go, but we also have that flexibility to get the best rates for the city. And I think, so here is the ordinance, and this should be in your packet as well if anybody wanted to make the motion. And I'm also available for any questions.
Time for questions, but if I could call on my colleague, Mr. Newell, Debbie referenced your work and due diligence alongside her in the final review. Can you share with us what you saw and what that led you to?
I mean, it gets into the discussion we've been having about future items that are on our agenda or desires. And I wanted to make sure that we understood as a team that there's about $20 million available balance for other projects, whether it be additional affordable housing, roads. You can't spend it to zero because you never know when something might blow up. Sewer lines, there's a limit we have. And I just wanted to thank you for adding the slide because I think it's just helpful for us to understand available balance going forward as we discuss things in the future.
And if I could tag on, we have a retreat scheduled of this new city council for Saturday, the 24th. There'll be a number of items discussed, but my number one objective somewhere on the agenda, hopefully while we're fresh, is to match our capacities with our policies, including the CIP, the TIP, the functional plans, all of it. And then make sure that this council is in accord with that, kind of a fresh review, see if you have any special needs or desires or goals. And we need to do this matchup more than just in regards to one very big bond issuance, but the overall capacities, including the general fund, including the enterprises, and make sure we're all on the same page. Some of our concurrencies and projects, as Doug just talked about, they're very much required by law, but others have to do with the priority of the council. So other than at budget time and putting the budget together, the other top priority of a city council by the revised codes of the state of Washington is that matching of priorities with policies that then create not only this year's budget, but our capacities and our planning moving forward. So that's my big goal, and it kind of takes up with where Doug let off. So any other questions, Mr. Tabor?
Thanks for providing that slide with the relative LTGO limits, because that was one of my questions. So I have two other questions. What is the source of repayment for the limited tax general obligation, and what restrictions apply? And specifically, are there anything that would limit our policy ability regarding property taxes rising or lowering?
The payback for a couple of the projects, the Knoll Road, the hope is we fund it from our real estate excise tax. We're projecting about a $250,000 transfer coming out of that fund. If you 0.25% of REITs has to be used for transportation projects, and so we would use that portion to fund that debt payment. But also knowing as we're building up reserves in there, so if for some reason the revenues don't reach that level, it's over the length of the term of the debt. So I felt comfortable in saying REITs will be able to fund the Knoll Road over the 20 years. The affordable housing, you implemented the 1/10 of 1%. We're guaranteed that tax, I believe, for 10 years, and we'd have to reinstate that tax in 10 years. But that is the other funding source for that. We collect about $500,000 in sales tax that is in restricted special revenue funds, and we track all that separately. And so we feel between some of the earnings between the affordable housing rents as well as the affordable housing sales tax, will be able to meet that portion of the debt without hitting any of our general fund revenues. The perk, 66% of that is funded by the Kitsap Public Facilities District. And the other is the hope is that our REITs will also fund that additional portion. And that will change as the price fluctuates, but that is in that other 0.25%. And so if we were not able to bring in all the revenues to match that annual payment every year, then we would go to our general fund reserve. So right now, none of these are anticipated on using our property tax dollars at this time. But it could in the future. Just want to make sure we understand that.
Councilman Eckert.
Yeah, I just want, with the perk, I know originally, the KPFD was funding 75%, but now we're talking, so we went from 3/4 to 2/3. Is that a factor of the properties that we've acquired, added to this project, or just, I think it's just kind of that number shifted, I believe, memory serves over the time.
My understanding is legally, they can't fund 75%. Legally, the city has to match it the 33.33%, and the PFD has to match it the 67%. So I don't remember where
Okay,
the
I just might be remembering
75%.
wrong. I just thought it was always, we were funding 25%, but I could just be
Yeah.
remembering.
I don't remember that number,
Okay.
but that's, and it has to be from the beginning of the project. So right now, the Public Facilities District is funding 100% of the design. And so we have to take that into account for the entire project when we fund it. So you might look at the debt payment, might be a little less than 66.6%, but that's because they funded 100% of the design up front. And then going forward, they'll make up that difference. So the project overall will only be funded by them by 67%.
It's already been a long day, so if I'm wrong, that's perfectly
I don't,
okay.
there's been so many presentations on this. There probably was something mentioned at some point, but I don't recall it. So I'm sorry. So.
Councilman Fitzpatrick.
So Debbie, as you know, I'm kind of getting up to speed on some of this. I was just wondering if you could tell me what percentage of our annual budget goes to debt currently and how it'll change if this goes through. And it's okay if you don't have the numbers. I want to just get it to me later. I was just kind of wondering.
I would say it's, yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know, but right now, before we take on, I know it's less than 10%. I think our debt payments in the general fund are less than probably $1 million right now, maybe a little bit more, but I can get those figures for you later. Sorry, I don't have those in front of me, but it's. Yeah.
So assuming that it's less than 10%, what kind of impact would this have? Do you have any ballpark?
On our general fund, the intent for the funding pieces that we have is none of this will hit the general fund for funding at this point. But knowing if for some reason our real estate excise tax doesn't come in, or you do not renew the affordable housing tax, then we would be coming back to the general fund to make that up. Part of the general obligation is we are obligating our tax funds to make this payment. We are promising our taxpayers that our taxes will support these projects and the payments. Is that right?
I have a question if I could, either for the bond advisor or council. Number one, the last issuance we did went out with what rating?
Well, the last issuance you did actually was a water sewer revenue bond. I can't remember the rating on that. It would be separate from the general obligation.
Right.
Your current general obligation rating is a AA. Yeah, AA, which is just 2 notches below a AAA rating, which is the highest rating.
Excellent. And
Can I add to that?
yes,
Sorry.
please, Debbie.
Is our rating is actually, when I know that we've heard mention of it before, is like we really want to bump up our rating, but we are actually very highly rated for a city our size and our general fund revenue. So I just want to point that out. It's a very good rating for somebody our size.
Yeah, great.
No, I'm aware of that. And would you anticipate that rating? I know that's predictive of the market, but from the financial analysis you've done, our expenditures, our reserves, the state of the economy, what's your sense of the rating?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to be able to maintain that rating. I wouldn't be planning to go up. I think, as Debbie said, for a city your size,
Right.
AA rating is terrific.
And as long as I have you, then a kind of a technical question where my head used to reside in my career. When these are underwritten and go to market, do you anticipate this as a retail issue, an institutional issue, or a mixture of both? Which markets do you intend to place these with?
Well, let's see. So the bonds span from basically maturities in 2026 all the way through 2045. So in the early years, you'll get managed accounts that'll purchase those. In the later years, you'll probably get those institutional buyers. So you get a little bit of both. What you probably won't get are the, say, the individual, sometimes we call them the mom and pop retail investor who, wants to buy a couple bonds. It just typically gets placed with, again, the managed money or the institutions.
Right, and that's probably to our advantage. I do remember, and Debbie will recall this, on an issue some 10, 15 years ago, we made a point of a retail carve-out to give our local citizens the opportunity to invest at a good tax-free interest rate and invest in their community. But I don't think we're doing this time around, are we?
No, but I do believe through Piper Sandler, we can confirm this and send something to Debbie. Through Piper Sandler, I think they have an agreement with Charles Schwab. So I think if folks do want to invest, I think they can call up a Schwab broker and place an order for the bonds. But we're really hoping that the rates are so low that folks wouldn't find it advantageous to actually invest.
Otherwise, I'd suggest, is there a budget for a tombstone ad that could be taken out in a local paper or in other media?
We can absolutely follow up with Piper Sandler on that, and we'll get some information to you.
Do I have any other questions from council? Not seeing any, I'd be happy to entertain a motion on what constitutes, if the refunding issue picks up the interest rate that's advantageous to us, this will constitute across the spectrum the largest single issuance of debt in our city's history. I entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance number 26-01, an ordinance of the city of Poulsbo, Washington relating to contracting indebtedness, providing for the issuance, sale, and delivery of not to exceed 24 million aggregate principal amount of limited tax general obligation and refunding bonds to provide funds to finance the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the Poulsbo Event and Recreation Center, construction of the Nordic Cottages, construction of Knoll Road Phase 4 improvement project, and other capital improvements to refund certain outstanding limited tax general obligation bonds of the city and to pay the cost of issuance of the bonds, fixing or setting parameters with respect to certain terms and covenants of the bonds, appointing the city's designated representative to approve the final terms of the sale of the bonds, and providing for other related matters.
Thank you, Councilwoman Crowe. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
I have a second. Before I call for the question, and if possible, I'd like to see this reflected in the record, but since this represents the first phase of the Poulsbo Events and Recreation Center, and we've talked about that previously, 15.6 million of this issue, of which 66% is coming from Poulsbo, the Public Facility District, and referencing today's Kitsap Sun, where there's an obituary for Rick Smith, who was a longtime state legislator out of the 23rd in the 1970s. He was a key legislator, and he was the linchpin on the construction and passage of the Public Facility District when that was authorized by the state legislature. In recognition of his recent death, his obituary today, and I'll be attending his memorial on Friday at Chico. I would like to see language inserted or reference at the council in the passage of this recognizes the instrumental role of the late deceased attorney Rick Smith, past state representative, and we honor his work, and then we can create that out of the minutes and perhaps mail it to his family. I think that would be very fitting given the amount of support we're getting from them. And if there's concurrence on that and nobody has a question, the city clerk can see that wrapped in this, not in the motion, but in the description of the conversation. And I will then call for the vote. Mr. Newell.
Newell, aye.
Oh, I had a comment before we.
Oh, please, Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, no, I just, as you said, this is the biggest debt issue. And the largest part is going to the perk, but we're also, it's going to Northern Cottages and it's going to completion of Knoll Road, which is a huge project that's been going on with our public works and the city for a long time. And I just wanted to take a moment to note that because, Heather mentioned we're still getting folks coming in on Christmas Eve with development. And I often hear criticism that the city is growing and we're not supporting the infrastructure and development or building around the development that we need to do to support all the development. Well, if you look at this, the vast majority of this is doing exactly that. And we're doing it all the time in so many different ways. One of the things under Knoll Road is a massive sewer improvement that gets no attention. And so I just want to take the moment to recognize the incredible work that the city has done, councils past, the staff, to do exactly what I often hear we're not doing, that we're not putting in new infrastructure, that we're not growing to take care of the growth. We are doing it all the time. Now, what I think the most of the complaint is 305. Yes, 305 is not growing because 305 is not our road. So you need to look off of 305 to see all the amazing work that the city is doing to deal with exactly that complaint. And this money is going towards that. Thank you.
Here, here. Any other comment before I call for the vote? Good once, looking twice. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Newell.
Newell, aye.
Crow, aye.
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Tabor, aye.
The motion passes. I salute the staff, our underwriter advisor, our council, and as Mr. Eckert just eloquently put it, this city and its staff are seeing to it that we grow sensibly and we grow commensurately and that we are not willy-nilly. And yes, there's traffic on 305, but what we're doing that's within our city limits and our control and not the state route itself, we are keeping up with the growth. I just want to make that expertly clear. Thank you. That completes the business agenda, and we're going to take a 10-minute break, meet here shortly after 7 o'clock, and we're going to continue with the workshop agenda. I know there are those in the audience that have been patiently waiting for the housing affordability workshop series, and we thank you for your patience. Is BCAT ready? Welcome back, council and public. We're continuing the city council. This is the workshop agenda portion, which is more informal, not so burdened with protocol. And we review future work that we'll entertain at the podium under the business agenda in later meetings. So on that note, we're going to start with the workshop agenda, item 12A, which is what many of you have been waiting for, the Housing Affordability Workshop Series. It's the first of a series, 4 of them. And before you begin, if I could repeat what I've started to talk about, it's my intention in the mayor's office after the last series is completed this winter to announce the formation of a mayor's Blue Ribbon Commission to explore a public-private partnership for solutions affordable housing ownership. 2 elements are really important to that, and one of which is strictly my years in the private sector. I don't believe affordable housing can be sustained over the long haul by the government and the taxpayer. It requires the investment of the private sector, and for the private sector to be involved, there needs to be enough return where all parties come ahead and are incented to provide that housing. And then we're talking about rolling with something. Whether we can achieve that or not, this Blue Ribbon Commission would be there to explore it from a finance, from insurance, from investment, from construction to all the various stakeholders. And the key in my mind, and we have a lot of good rental being built, but the key is ownership, because that's the basis of the American dream and building net worth and being able to participate and grow a family and a retirement to sustain that. I'll end on that note and just say it is my intention as we conclude these series to announce that Blue Ribbon Commission and the people who will serve on it. Thank you very much. And turning it over to Heather and the Planning and Economic Development staff, Nicole.
Thank you, Mayor Stern. And thank you, Council and City Administrator Gelder, for carving out this time for us for this very important conversation, and for all the members and the public that have joined us this evening. It is a privilege to kick off the new year with this very important discussion. You may ask yourself, why are we doing this now, and where did the idea for this come from? It actually came through the completion of 2 of our work plan items for 2025. We were to come to council with more housing affordability initiative changes through our zoning code, as well as changes to our impact fees. And Carla Boughton in the audience was working on our impact fee changes as the last effort that she was contributing to our city. And through her work, she found that the impact fees, based on changes to our state legislature and our requirement to update them because of our comprehensive plan, that we're going to see some significant changes to our impact fees, specifically around park impact fees. And we didn't think it would be fair to bring that to council in isolation because you have choices to make with implementing those fees. Do you want to stagger them? Do you want to do that overnight with one swift change? Do you want to offset those for affordable housing projects? And Rob, Nicole, and I spoke together and we realized that before coming to you with decisions about those fees, as well as policy changes for affordable housing, we wanted to address this comprehensively and not in isolation. As you know, we can encourage a variety of housing types and choices, but how do we actually get them built? Knowing that there are many tools available to us, we felt it was important to bring all of our cards to the table and structure this conversation over a series of sessions rather than a single narrow focus. So tonight, Nicole is going to give you some cold, hard facts about the true cost of housing. She has spent months gathering census data, talking to developers, and even our KBA, who's here tonight, thank you, to ensure that these numbers are grounded in reality. I will warn you, these numbers are sobering and somewhat discouraging, but I want to commend Nicole for this amazing and thorough work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Thank you, Heather, and good evening. And let me know if I start to get quiet because I'm moving from the microphone. I know the back of the room is very hard to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. There we go. Sorry. You would think I haven't done this before. Okay. Good evening, council and mayor. We're here tonight to talk about housing affordability. Really minor topic, no big deal, you know, especially after you've gone through such major issues already tonight. But it's an important topic that Heather and I have been it was a bit of a passion project for me about 2 years ago to want to truly understand the cost of housing. And we talk all the time about how we don't like to bring code amendments forward just for the sake of bringing code amendments forward. We want to understand that they actually have a difference and they can be utilized. And so a piece of that is understanding what the cost of housing is and how those code amendments might impact the cost of housing. And the impact fee conversation really spurred that on. Welcome to workshop 1 of our 4-part housing affordability series. Tonight is about grounding our discussion in facts, what drives housing costs, what is within the city's control, and what choices and trade-offs lie ahead as we work together to guide Poulsbo's housing future. As always, please feel free to ask questions as we go along, but know that I've built in breakpoints for questions. And I'll be honest, there's 50 slides here. So if I haven't answered your question by the 5th one, I probably will by the 25th one. But please, as always, please feel free to ask questions as we go. And then that'll help us. The goal is the series is that they build on each other. And so your feedback helps us decide what information to bring back to you next time. And then again, the 3rd time, and then eventually the policy decisions at the 4th workshop. So the 4-part workshop series is structured again to build on one another, and it is intentionally to build understanding step by step. Tonight we'll focus on cost drivers, both market and local policy factors. In workshop 2, we will explore programs and incentives, and then workshop 3 will look at what implementation of those incentives and programs might mean. In terms of staff capacity, in terms of financial impact, the impact to existing residents, new residents. We're going to try and break it all down. And then week 4, the goal is to bring it all together and get some policy direction from the council for staff to bring back some of these incentives and programs to you for adoption if you so choose. Each session builds on the last so that by March, council is ready to make informed strategic decisions. So why are we here? Poulsbo is facing real housing affordability challenges. Costs have risen far faster than incomes, impacting renters, homeowners, employers, and local workers. Our purpose is to develop a shared factual foundation, understand what we can actually influence, explore options grounded in both local data and best practices, and then ultimately set a clear direction for 2026 and beyond. We're not here to debate whether housing affordability is a concern. It already is. We're here to determine what we can do about it. So to reiterate, tonight is about understanding what affordable means, what drives housing cost, and what parts of that are shaped by the policy that you make as a council. And then what we may need to consider as we move forward in these workshops. So this was something I really wanted to take the time to discuss in terms of what does housing affordability actually mean. So before we talk about cost, fees, or regulations, it's important to make sure we are aligned on what we mean by housing affordability. If you'll notice, this workshop series isn't called affordable housing. It's specifically called housing affordability for a reason. When we talk about affordability, we are not just talking about lowering prices. We are talking about whether people at different income levels, ages, and life stages can find housing in Poulsbo that meets their needs. Affordability means that young adults can enter the rental market and stay in the community that they grew up in. It means families can grow without being forced to move farther away as their housing needs change. It means essential workers, teachers, nurses, and service workers can live close to where they work. And it means older adults can downsize or age in place, remaining connected to the community that they helped build. In other words, housing affordability is about choice and access. It's about whether Poulsbo functions as a complete community with housing options that support people throughout their lives, not just at one income level or one age or one stage of your life. This shared understanding is important because it shapes how we evaluate costs, incentives, and policy tools in the rest of this series. So why it matters. It matters because it directly affects who can live and work in Poulsbo. When housing costs rise faster than incomes, the impacts ripple across the entire community. We begin to lose the teachers, nurses, service workers, and small business employees who support our local economy. Young families may choose not to move here or may be forced to leave. Older adults may struggle to stay in their homes on fixed incomes. A lack of affordable housing doesn't just affect individual households, it affects employers, schools, public services, and local businesses. It can increase commute times, strain the transportation systems, and reduce community cohesion. Ensuring a range of housing options helps maintain economic stability, supports local businesses, and preserves the social and cultural fabric that makes Poulsbo a vibrant and livable city. This is why housing affordability is not just a housing issue, it's a workforce issue, an economic development issue, and a community sustainability issue. So I wanted to ground our conversation in that as we move forward. So we're going to just start with defining what affordable housing means. Now that we've talked about it more in a broader sense, value-based sense, this slide introduces the formal definitions that are commonly used in housing policy and planning. At the federal level, housing is considered affordable when a household spends more than 30% of their gross income toward total housing costs, which also includes utilities. When households spend more than 30% of their income in housing, they are considered cost burdened. When they spend more than 50% of their income, they are considered severely cost burdened. These thresholds are important because they help us identify households that may struggle to afford other basic necessities like food, healthcare, transportation, and childcare. This room always gives me a sniffle. You'll also hear the term workforce housing throughout the series. Workforce housing generally refers to homes affordable to households earning roughly 80 to 120% of area median income, or AMI. This income range usually includes essential workers, teachers, nurses, and many local service workers. AMI, area, I always want to call it American median income, it's area median income, is a standardized benchmark published annually by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. It represents the midpoint of household incomes in, for us, the Bremerton-Silverdale metropolitan area, and varies by household size. We use AMI because it allows us to compare affordability needs consistent and align our policy tools with state and federal programs. So what this slide does is reinforce a few key points about the definitions we just reviewed. First, affordability is not a one-size-fits-all concept. While the 30% standard provides a useful benchmark, affordability looks different depending on whether a household is renting or owning and depending on their income level. Renters and owners experience affordability differently. Renters tend to be more vulnerable to sudden cost increases, while homeowners may face long-term risks related to taxes, insurance, maintenance, or fixed incomes, especially among older adults. Affordability also varies across income segments. A household at 30% AMI faces very different challenges than one at 80 or 120% AMI. This distinction matters because different policy tools are effective for different income groups. So as we move through this workshop series, we will come back to these definitions and distinctions when we discuss which income levels the city may want to prioritize and which tools are most appropriate for those income levels. The last one on definitions, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes. So a couple of other terms that we will use throughout the workshop series. Infill housing is new housing built on vacant, underused or redeveloped land within existing neighborhoods, typically where roads, utilities, and services are already in place. Missing middle housing is a term used to define housing types that fall between single-family homes and large apartment complexes. Duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, small courtyard apartments. Missing middle is often what is used for infill housing. So, of course.
Just because you guys taught me a new term previous, but
Yeah.
so courtyard apartment, define that one real quick, because it was like spring garden, I think was the last one.
Courtyard is, it's a very uncommon thing you see nowadays. It's like a garden court or a motor court type of one entry, multiple units around one type of open space, similar to cottage, but a little smaller perhaps. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit about our demographics, which sets the stage for some of the decisions that you will need to make in the future. The housing needs assessment was first completed with the comprehensive plan update, and it was adopted last year with the update. Which is online, it's Appendix A1 in the comprehensive plan, and that uses 2022 census data. For this presentation, I used the most recent census data that we have available and updated some of these numbers for the 2023 numbers. I wanted to be consistent and use census data since it's something we can grab onto. There's a lot of other data sources out there, but then you're picking and choosing which ones to use. So I primarily use census data for these. And then we also have updated Washington State Office of Financial Management puts out housing and population estimates every April 1. So we have 2025 data for that. Since 2010, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone in the room. The city of Poulsbo has grown at an average rate of 2.72%, which is well above the countywide average and the Washington State average. Since 2020, Poulsbo has grown by 9.48%. What this looks like in terms of age groups. What's been interesting, but also not surprising, is the 50 to 79-year-old age group, which is consistent with nationally, which is the silver tsunami. The boomers, I appreciate that. The boomers getting a little older, but these change in demographics have implications for our housing units. If you're someone who is looking to downsize, but you've been in your house for 40, 50 years, downsizing might not be financially feasible because the cost of the new housing unit is more expensive than what you're moving out of. And you have a 2,500 square foot house that you're living in with one or two people, when if you were to able to downsize, a family of 4 could move in there and have a more affordable housing unit because it's a little older. So these demographics have an impact on the type of housing that gets built in your community. We've also seen a decline in age under 5 and 10 to 19, which is consistent with what we've heard from the school district, that they're not growing. Their numbers are actually declining, despite some of the rumors out there that you hear. And that's a lot of has to do with just society and certain generations choosing to have only one kid or having not wait till they're waiting until they're in their late 30s to have kids. And part of that reason is because it's hard to build equity when you can't buy a home. And so there's a lot of things that come into play with the changing demographics of our community. In 2023, 58% of our housing units are owner occupied. And this is an interesting number. When I updated this, that number continues to change every year when I update the census data. I believe it was 2020, it was at 64%. So that's a change in terms of owner occupied versus renter occupied. And you could try and read into that, but also prior to Arundel on Viking Avenue, we didn't have a multifamily project for 20 years in Poulsbo. And we now have Oslo coming online. We've had Fourth Avenue Apartments, Wood Creek added more. So this could just be simply that we finally have more needed apartment units in the city. But it is an interesting stat to look at. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the cost of housing. Again, I'm using 2023 numbers because I wanted to ground it in numbers that were solid. The median gross rent in 2023 is 1,767, which is a doubling of the gross of the median rent since 2015 in Poulsbo.
And is that houses and apartments combined, or?
Yes, it's rental units, period, whether or not they're apartments or single family detached. But what does it actually mean for those who are trying to rent? So if you think about the slides previously, you don't want to spend more than 30% of your income on your housing. So that means that to afford $1,767, you should make $66,000 in order to afford and not be cost burdened. The median renter income is $52,000, which obviously falls short of what is needed to be able to reasonably afford a rental unit in Poulsbo. 40% of renters are cost burdened or severely cost burdened, and nearly 1/3 of renters earn less than $50,000 a year, placing them at severe high risk for being cost burdened. Renters make up about 42% of the household, which we already talked about, and they generally have smaller average household sizes. And the greatest affordability needs among households below 30% AMI, especially elderly individuals and small families. So this is what Heather mentioned earlier, where there's parts of this presentation where it's uncomfortable and it's unpleasant. But I think we need to base all of ourselves in facts and then understand the next steps as we move forward. So of course.
So captured in those numbers are the unfortunate situation of subletting a room. Is that encompassed in some of these numbers?
It should be, yes.
Okay.
It should be any part of renting as part of that average, but that's something I would need to look in a little further to confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, because co-housing and co-living is also a little bit of a hot topic as well in the state. So since 2010, the median rent in Poulsbo has increased by 77%, but the median household income has only increased by 58%, which is not a Poulsbo unique problem. It's a national problem of the rising cost of housing and not the rising cost of your income, the raising of your income. So a household earning the median household income, which is often synonymous with AMI, so area median income, for a renter of $52,000, again, which is that median income for a renter per year, and living in an average price apartment has a little over $2,500 a month to cover food, healthcare, transportation, childcare. And then running those numbers based on general cost of what things cost right now and being somewhat conservative, you need $3,200 beyond your rent to be able to afford to live. So what this means is that you have individuals, families making choices between food and healthcare, making choices between what if they can put gas in their car because they need to pay their rent. So there's an obvious gap between income and the cost of housing for renters. So now we get to home ownership. The median home value in this is 2023 numbers, is $575,900, which is up 104% since 2015. So the renter median rent went up about 100%, and the median the median home value went up about 100% as well. So the median homeowner income is 129,904. This is a little more consistent with homeowners being a little more affluent in the community and being able to maybe afford a home, but still there's a gap in the ability to own a home. 20% of owners remain cost burdened or severely cost burdened, 27%. And then ownership increasingly out of reach for households making below 100% of the area median income. And if you wanted to know, the area median income for Silverdale, Bremerton is 124,300. So that's a 2025 number. Yeah. And a large share of older adults rely on fixed incomes, retirement, and Social Security, which you saw we have a great increase in our older population in Poulsbo, and they're often on fixed incomes. And so they're at risk for affordability issues, despite the fact that they own their home. So what does this look like doing the math? Assuming a down payment of 10%, which is low. Most lenders want to see more in the 20% range, but again, trying to be a little conservative in the numbers, you're looking at a down payment of 57,590. And you think about your interest and the current rates, and then your taxes and insurance, and then your total estimated monthly housing costs, and we'll just stick with the 6.75%, you're looking at a mortgage of $3,963 a month. So what does that mean? What do you need to make to be able to afford that home with staying below 30% of your gross income so that you're not cost burdened? Thinking about at the 6.75%, you will need to have an income of a household income, so it could be two people, but a household income of $158,500 per year. The highest job sectors and those wages in our city: retail trade, $40,000, healthcare, $55,000, education services, $39,000, and food services, $25,000.
When you say education services, what's that supposed to include? Is that teachers?
It's teachers, yeah.
Because
That's from
I
the
can tell
state.
you the starting salary of a brand new teacher in North Kitsap School District, so straight out of school, minimum education, no experience, is mid 50,000s.
So and likely includes the administrative staff as well.
Yeah, so it's got to include
Yep,
classified staff,
more than likely.
not certificated staff, because average teacher, starting teacher salary, straight out of college, nothing extra.
Yeah.
Is I think it was 55 last time I saw.
Yeah, so these numbers come from WEDA, the Washington Employment Division Department of something.
Yeah, so if we're including classified,
Yeah.
so that would bring it down, but
Yeah,
teachers, I said, that's the floor.
Yeah.
Is mid 50s.
yeah. So just bring it all back. For a medium home price of 575,000, you're looking at needing to make a household income of 158,000 to be able to afford that. And our wages, in terms of our highest job sector and local wages in Poulsbo, are shown on the screen. This is a pause point to ask you. I mean, it's a little doom and gloom there, but wanted to give you opportunities to voice your opinion or your thoughts.
So this is, first of all, great presentation, really informative, and appreciate the demographics tying it in to help us be informed about what the majority of our tax base looks like and our housing look like. I just want to, let me see, did I type any questions? No, just a bunch of notes.
Yeah.
So everything was really good. The only thing I would note is just that overall household, like graphs on non-household debt have also gone up.
Okay.
So people are carrying more debt than they were 2010, 2015.
Yeah.
So that's just another factor. Not only are they earning, like let's say their income has only increased 20% when housing's increased 100%, their debt burden has also increased. And this is one of the many reasons why I'm really hesitant on increasing tax burden. And we are in the most regressive state in the country, I think tied with Florida sometimes, I don't know. So it just makes it difficult for us as municipal legislators to
Absolutely.
solve these problems.
It is. And those are some of the conversations and the trade-offs you'll get into in the next, in the subsequent
Love it.
series is, okay, if you make this choice for new housing or it's even existing housing, does that pass off a cost to existing residents who are potentially on a fixed income, and how does that impact them?
And I'll share this. I'll share this non-housing debt information with you so you can.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The demographic chart with the 10-year bands, was that between censuses? Was it represented?
No, are you talking about like, sorry.
Yeah, come on, more back. Yeah, no, go back one or forward one. This one, yeah.
Yeah. So that is what these.
Okay, so it was more than just one census. Because it almost seems like every 10 years it was changing, which would kind of be a bubble.
Yeah.
As the bubbles are moving forward.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. So.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been, ever since I did the housing needs assessment originally, I've been tracking every year. And as I actually get kind of excited when the new census data comes out, because I can see, which is weird to me, but I can see the difference and go, oh, that's interesting. Based on the work we did in the last several years, maybe that actually had a difference. I don't know. So it's been, I hope we will continue to track that.
Yeah, it was the 20 to 29 and 30 to 39 is what I kind of stuck as you jumped off the slide. So that's why I wanted to look at it again, because it was like, oh, well, that one went up, but that one went down. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, so I was saying, is our population just slowly moving forward and not necessarily a lot of gains and losses from the outside? Is it just,
Yeah.
you know,
And
because
that's,
that is something we watched at the school district. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, this class was big. Now you watch them go through 12 years and influence the demographics each year in a certain way. But yeah, I guess now we're still trending. Doesn't track that.
yeah.
Oh,
They're staying at home.
yeah, they're the ones that, yeah, they didn't leave the
Yeah.
30 to 39s. They've moved. So.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions thus far? There's plenty more meat and potatoes in the presentation, so. Okay, great. So this is these next two slides, I believe I spoke to this early on in the comprehensive plan update, which I'm sure you all remember that conversation, but what I find interesting every time this comes around, and it's been tracking as we've updated the data, that we primarily have 1 to 2 person households in Poulsbo, but what we have being built is 2 to 3 bedroom and 4 bedroom units. And it took me a long time to understand why, and we'll get a little bit more into that in terms of the cost of housing and why larger units get built versus smaller units and walls and things like that. But it is something that is a stat for our city, that we have 1 and 2 person households, but we don't have a lot of that, so that size units being built.
Any indication if because that additional bedroom is being used to work out of?
There is some work from home elements, absolutely, and I'll show you that stat in a second, but it has been, yeah, there's a piece of that has come into play the last several years with the type of units being built. So the number of housing units has increased dramatically since 2010, and we have just over 5,600 housing units in the city as of 2025. And that's also a significant, I mean, that's good because one of the things that people ask me all the time, not all the time, but I get questions about when I talk about housing is why are we still trying to figure this out? And I try and remind people that we were deficient in 2008, and then we had a recession. And so we're still trying to recover from that deficiency. We haven't even met that need. And then we need to meet that need. And then the next generation of need. So as a country, we've been deficient prior to 2008 in terms of housing units. The type of housing units that exist currently in the city, we have about 64% are single unit detached, so single family detached, which is consistent with our zoning. Over 60% of our land in the city is zoned residential low single family. So that is consistent. We've seen an increase in our multi 3 to 9 unit a little bit over the last several years because, again, we've been seeing some more multifamily come on board. And here's the work from home data, which this is something that Heather and I were eagerly awaiting because you just kind of assumed it would drop off, and it did. In other places in the county, it dropped off or it leveled off, but Poulsbo continues to rise. And people want to, when I get questions about growth in Poulsbo, I'll usually ask, well, why do you want to live here? And why do you live here? It's because it's amazing. Everyone wants to live in Poulsbo, right? And so if you had the ability to bring a King County income to Poulsbo and buy your dream house and live in a community like Poulsbo, you absolutely would. So I'm not looking at anybody, not looking at anyone right now. So yeah, so this is a factor in our housing. So we have a lot of work from home, and we have houses being built that have those spaces, that have extra rooms and extra space for work from home elements. We have two parents potentially working from home, so you have two offices and more space. And then you need your kids to have a room you can shut them into so they won't bother you while you're working from home, I assume. So yeah, so the work from home is having an impact on housing in Poulsbo. And I won't look at you, Doug. No. Oh, yes, everybody. Okay. But I understand. Why wouldn't you want to live here? So in summary, the housing needs assessment. Poulsbo is growing faster than the region, increasing pressure on housing supply. Rents and home prices have risen faster than incomes, leaving many unable to afford housing. And renters face the greatest strain, with nearly half spending more than 30% of their income on housing. Older adults are increasing demand for smaller, accessible, and age-friendly housing options, and housing affordability affects our local workers. Do you want a break? We built it in here just to give you an opportunity. Okay, great. Back to work. Okay.
No, but I do want to ask a question.
Oh, of course. Please.
That slide about work from home, do you see a correlation then to some of our empty commercial? Then because residential is being used, basically folks are working from home rather than needing an office?
We're not seeing, we haven't experienced that enough in Poulsbo that it seems to be having an impact. I mean, obviously we have some spaces that are empty, large spaces we're all aware of, but generally small office spaces seem to be of a premium. That's what we hear from a lot of people, that they're looking for spaces and they can't find it in the city of Poulsbo. So, well, we don't get the sense that there's a lot of empty space sitting out there. Yeah. I mean, if you just include Ryden and Albertsons, but there's a lot of other spaces too.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking more
Yeah.
office space.
Okay.
This is the time of year when, it's dark when you go to work and it's dark when you come home. Me. So you see what buildings have lights on and what don't.
Yeah.
And there seems to be more, there's a lot of commercial office space where there's no lights on.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just saying,
Yeah.
and is it because they're empty? Is it because their folks are working from home? Is it just because they don't start?
Yeah.
They have a adjusted work schedule and so they're not there at that time. But I do see dark offices.
Yeah.
So it makes me curious.
That's something we might be able to find a little more information. It doesn't really impact currently in terms of housing. There is definitely a movement, you'll hear about it in Seattle and some of the urban cities, about converting office and commercial spaces to housing. It is a building code nightmare, and they're trying to work through that at the state level right now, but there is a movement to do that. I don't believe Poulsbo will be at the forefront of it, but I do think we could benefit from some changes that are made at the state level, the state building code. Yeah. So understanding what drives the cost of housing. So there's the market forces, and I'll go over a few of those, the things we can't generally do not control. And then there's the pieces that we have some policy decisions and we can have some impact on, and that's the local cost drivers. And then that all trickles down into affordability. And when we're talking about market factors, we're talking about financing and interest rates, regional housing demand. Whenever people in other parts of the country find out I live in the Puget Sound, they're just like, you are so lucky. I'm like, I am, thank you. So there's a housing demand for people who want to live in this beautiful place. Labor and material costs, the cost of construction is risen in hard to define ways. General economic conditions, you go back to 2008 and the recession, and there's other factors, COVID, things like that, that have an impact. Demographic and market shifts, land and development feasibility, investor and lending environment, and regulatory and utility market conditions. So those are pieces that as a city and as a city council, you might have a small impact on here and there. But overall, you really can't make the needle move on those pieces as a small city, especially. So summarizing market factors at the national level, interest rates remain high. Material prices are staying elevated, especially lumber, concrete. There's still labor shortages in the skilled trades, which pushing wages higher and slowing production. Lenders have tightened standards, requiring more equity and offering fewer construction loans. Inflation raises all project costs, from insurance to transportation, all the above. And then there's national housing shortages, which keep prices higher and across some regions. And then you look at our Kitsap County specific factors for the market. We have a strong in-migration from King County, which increases competition for limited homes. There's a large military demand, which adds pressures to both rental and ownership markets. Our local wages lag behind home prices, creating a persistent affordability gap. And then ferry access, of course, has an impact on people's ability to live in Poulsbo, but perhaps make wages elsewhere. And then a smaller building market struggles to absorb cost spikes or long review timelines. So those are different market factors that we might not have any control over, but they play a role in the cost of housing. So.
Lowered it. I guess I just qualify the people that are in the military and that support the U.S. Navy here actually work in our county.
Mm-hmm.
And they are people that need housing because that's where their jobs are located.
Absolutely.
So unlike my compatriot who could live in, I'm sorry,
No.
you didn't see that. But I mean, we've got immigration because people are moving here and bringing their assets and realty.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I see, it's not really semantics per se, but supporting workers that not only live inside the city of Poulsbo, we're the bedroom community for a couple of Navy bases.
Oh, absolutely. And this is not
So
to say that it's a
I know you know that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that out loud,
Yeah.
that it's not.
Yeah. It's just, whenever a new ship comes in, that creates such a pressure for housing at a very specific time. And so there's a constant also change in that military presence in Kitsap County over the years. So, and then.
But that's who we are.
Oh, absolutely. And I've heard that that the market and the rental market in Poulsbo and Kitsap County sets their rates based on what the housing
There is a housing allowance set.
Exactly.
It's always time late.
Yeah.
And so that was a big concern here because our rental costs, went way higher than that.
Yeah.
So it is a concern. I'm glad we're bringing on lights. I just wanted to indicate that our housing needs to support not just the people that work here in Poulsbo. We are the bedroom community for the major employer here in Kitsap County.
Yeah.
Does the military have any obligation to help with the housing need for their troops? I mean, to build more housing or to incentivize more housing construction as they need it?
Not that I've ever heard. And I know Bremerton specifically works, their planning department works with the Navy directly with their comprehensive planning, and they're very hard to work with in that regard. So that's secondhand knowledge. I'm
not like legally. I mean, there's an obligation to house your people, but yeah, there's nothing legally. But I was gonna say, as far as the housing allowance, what tends to be seen around in communities around military bases, because BAH rates are published, is that rates go up, creates a demand. It's always behind, as Doug said. So the military increases the allowance, that gets published, and so then rates are raised because now all the landlords know that the rates went up, and so then rates go up. Now they're behind. And so it's a little bit of dog chasing its tail problem in every military community.
I would argue, Michael, that they're like any other employee. St. Michael doesn't build housing for their employees. The school district doesn't build housing. The Navy's just another one of our employees. They're just happen to be the biggest employee. They're not into it. It's just, people move here to work for the Navy.
And honestly, I mean, there was what was military housing down by the Naval Hospital, and it got privatized, and then they had to open it up to all kinds of other people because military didn't want to live there. And so they brought in, then it became federal civilians, then it became, so even when the military has housing, military doesn't necessarily want to live there. They move further. I want a big house out in Belfair, or, so it's a hard problem. But I had another question with this, and Doug or KBA, or maybe somebody, are we still seeing cost per square foot construction costs on the peninsula higher than the average of the rest of the region and state? Has that leveled out a bit? I know for a while, especially with COVID, we were seeing much higher on the Olympic Peninsula than anywhere else.
I think that one would be hard to pick up from that standpoint, unless you've got data later on that. Getting trades here is hard. I'd say the Puget Sound is just abnormally high compared to any other part of the U.S. It's just Sound versus East, like we were higher.
Yeah. And I've had conversations with the planner in Port Angeles and now with the planning director in Sequim. So understanding that it is hard. Port Angeles has basically said, we'll give you the kitchen sink, and there's nothing happening because it's really hard to get construction up there. So, but yeah. So these are dealing with the market factors, and now we're going to dive into the things that you all can have an impact on. And this is to set the stage for talking about programs and incentives and narrowing in on any programs and incentives you want to adopt as a city. So these include zoning and development, and I'm just going to go through each one individually to give you a little bit of background about what we mean by that. And we have a little bit of data to show it. So buildable land supply and constraints. I don't think anyone has ever not heard that all the good land is gone. It's all the weird stuff that is left. Our vacant land is limited, restricting new housing opportunities. Parcel size and shape affect whether land can be efficiently developed. We have a lot of critical areas that reduce the net buildable area. Infrastructure gaps, so sewer, water, stormwater facilities, there's gaps in that system that make it difficult to develop certain parts of town. Zoning patterns may not allow needed densities or housing types. Again, 64% of our city is zoned residential low single family. Frontage and design standards can reduce achievable units on small sites. Redevelopment is costly. Smaller project on infill sites is it's potentially the same price as doing 500 units as doing 90 units. So your return on investment is a lot different. Rising land values in increase acquisition costs and reduce affordability. This is a slide that I've shown before in other presentations. On the left is our SR 305 zoning, which is adjacent to 305. It's commercial zoning. It allows mixed use. It allows flexible first floor. You guys passed that amendment last year or 2024. And it looks like, oh, there's so much vacant land there. But then you turn on the critical areas and you go, never mind. I mean, it's tough. It's not that you can't develop on those lots. It's that you are going to have to work really hard, and it's very expensive to make it happen. So although on a flat surface, on a map, vacant land looks, oh yeah, we got so and such acres. Well, how much is actually viable? And even if it's viable, does it pencil to actually develop on those properties? That's the question. And the critical areas, primarily, we have very little that we can control. The state mandates a lot of that, fish and wildlife, wetlands. I mean, like I said, there's always a path forward when you have a critical area, but your site just became a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive. So
The green diagonal is slopes, right?
that's the steep slopes, yeah. So again, it's possible. It's just much harder.
So the supply and constraints that also impacts ADU opportunities, then it's all across the board.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It impacts every type of product that you could build. If you've got a weird single family lot that's got a sloped backyard, it gets much harder to build an ADU. So, yeah. So looking at some of that buildable land supply and constraints and giving you some actual examples, this property is just north of the Pee Wee Field, if you're familiar. And it is 4.94 acres, walkable. Poulsbo Place is just right down here. 4th Avenue, this is 4th Avenue. Here's the apartments being built right here. So you get your bearings and understand where you're at. It's a very steep slope off of 4th Avenue. So access off of 4th Avenue would be very expensive. You'd be looking at a lot of walls, which add costs to the construction. And there's also a potential small wetland in the middle, but right here. So that, but it has very limited existing access. And on paper, it looks like you could potentially get 40 to 50 multifamily units, but in reality, it'll likely stay one single family home. We've had the property owner try and do even a short plat, and that's constrained by the existing access because it's only 10 feet wide, and fire access requires 20 feet wide. So when you start to redevelop sites, those kind of regulations come into play. They may have, I'm not sure. Yeah, at the time it was a number of years ago and they were just looking to do one extra lot. They weren't kind of the big time thinkers in terms of like a bigger development, but this just is an example of a property that looks really good on paper, but does it pencil? Probably not, unless some things change. Here's another example off of Jeans Lane. This is the Forest Rock Hills Park, which is up on the hill, and then you go down. You don't go down, you can't go that way. But so I plopped on the park here so you can get your bearings. It's about between these 3 lots, it's about 20 acres. It's in city limits. The existing, you could potentially get 60 single family units. It's owned residential single family. There's large wetlands right here in the middle of the property. And then also Jeans Lane is a private road. So there's no access to these properties. We had a proposal previously that considered access through Forest Rock Park, kind of adjacent to that. They tried to work on it and it just didn't work. Jeans Lane is actually owned by this one property owner and all these people have access easements on it. So if you were to try and get permission to widen this road and make it legally for multiple units, it would be impossible, frankly. But so it's just an example of acreage that's basically landlocked because of access. And then also there's sewer and water capacity. There's sewer and water issues because you'd have to bring sewer and water uphill into this area, and that's very prohibitive cost-wise. So this is another example of vacant land that looks really good on paper, but really not much can happen with it. So moving on to zoning and development standards, I won't spend a ton of time on this because you've done a lot of work in the last several years and you're familiar with that work. But when we talk about zoning, we're looking at lot size, lot width, lot coverage, setbacks, density, height limits, parking, landscaping, tree retention, all the things that are in our zoning ordinance. I'm not going to go over all these. You can look at this presentation letter and later remind yourself all the good work you did the last several years. But there was a number of amendments that you made in 2024 and 2025 that deal with housing variety and flexibility, commercial and mixed use zoning. We improved our process efficiency, and we also adopted state mandated updates. And what I find interesting is looking at a lot of the amendments we made over the last couple of years, but even prior to that, and a lot of the work that was done since 2020, there's a lot of approved units that are under construction and that are ready for construction. So it's not that the city hasn't, I don't think anyone would say that we haven't had housing being built. There's a lot of it. And, but remember that where's the number for multifamily? The 720 in the residential medium, 463 of those is one project. That's Oslo Bay. And Heather and I were just talking about Oslo Bay because we've realized that over the last couple years, we have not had anyone poke around much about multifamily. And that's because once Oslo started construction, people do their market research and they determine that it wouldn't financially make sense to do a project when there's 463 units coming online. So we're curious to see when those buildings actually start opening, if the median rent will kind of level off and what that'll do. That's, to be seen. So there's a lot of multifamily being built with even that one project, and there's quite a bit of single family detached that you see.
So understanding that we're not to the what are we gonna do next phase yet.
Not yet, but we will.
But you just said that, with that 438 units kind of pending, and we don't know what that's gonna do to the overall market, is that something that we should be, holding fire on making any big changes in the near future then, because we have that uncertainty?
No, I think you don't need to incentivize apartment complexes. For now, at least, we're good. We've had a lot come online. We have a lot coming online, but what we're missing is that missing middle.
So
And
more like the duplexes, triplexes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so that's what we'll talk about more in depth. Yeah. So another local cost driver is permitting process and timelines. Again, time is money when it comes to development. I have heard that from every developer I have talked to, that oftentimes they'll say, if you can process a little faster, that actually is better than a fee reduction, just kind of off the cuff. So the more you add review steps, the more time it's under review, the more that that property owner has to hold that property and pay those fees and taxes and expenses for that property. But the thing with our department is we do a really good job of that. We pride ourselves in efficient development review. And so there's pieces of this that it's a part of it, but wondering where we can, cut off more time here and there. We could always probably come up with new efficiencies, but would it really have that much of an impact at this time? So again, I just wanted to explain, because I've been learning a lot too, is that when a developer has to hold a project longer, it means the land and project remain in a non-productive pre-construction phase for an extended period while permits, reviews, or decisions are pending. During this time, the developer continues incurring costs without generating any revenue. These holding costs can be significant and directly affect whether a project remains financially feasible. So every additional month adds costs, which must be recouped in the final sale price or rent. Extended holding times can turn feasible projects into infeasible ones, especially for the smaller builders. And then a higher risk for the developer means fewer lenders are willing to finance the project, or they offer financing at higher rates. And to give you an idea, our subdivisions for single family lots take about 2 years to go from pre-application to vertical construction. So that's actual framing of homes and foundations. So all the site work has been done, the streets are done. So it's about 2 years. So that's 2 years where they can't sell those homes at minimum. And then our multifamily review time is about 12 months from pre-application to vertical construction of the walls. So another local cost driver of the cost of housing is utility connections and general facility charges and utility connection requirements. They represent a major upfront expense that directly affect the feasibility of new housing. Connections require both physical installation and payment of system development charges. So you pay to install the utility, but then you also pay a system charge as well. Upfront fees often represent one of the largest per unit local cost components. Costs vary by housing type and meter size, affecting feasibility for smaller units or infill projects. Infrastructure capacity or extension needs can create additional costs. Again, that example of Jean's Lane. So if you are required to extend a utility line in order to get to your project, that adds significant cost to your project. And then fees help fund future system improvements. So there's a reason we have those fees. And we'll talk more in depth about what this looks like if, in the future about the different options you have. We'll get into a little more in workshop too. And then the payment of the timing of that payment matters. So whether fees are due at permit issuance, which is currently our policy, the developer has to pay that all up front, and it can be difficult to come up with that early on when you haven't sold or rented in, or you haven't sold any units, or and so there are other jurisdictions that have that paid later, but so those are conversations we'll have just to give you more information. Application fees and impact fees. Impact fees, the thing that started this whole workshop series. Impact fees fund needed infrastructure generated by new development. They add significant upfront cost per unit again. The fees vary by project type and size, which influence which housing types are more feasible to build. So currently, which this will change with our new impact fee update in the near future, but currently, whether you build a 3,000 square foot single family detached or 1,000 square foot single family detached, your cost is the same for that impact fee. It is a little different from multifamily, and then ADUs are 50% of the fee, but the size of the house in terms of the type of the unit size doesn't make your fees go down. So does it make more sense to build a 3,000 square foot house? So balancing affordability and fiscal responsibility is critical. Again, these impact fees, as you saw earlier, pay for things. They pay for Knoll Road completion. The park impact fees are helping to pay for the park. So there's pieces that need to be paid for. So, you know, if you were to reduce impact fees for any reason, well, that has an impact in the future. And that's something, again, I'll bring those numbers to you so you can see it and you can make those informed decisions. But that is what an impact fee gets charged to a single family home. It's not the developer who pays that fee. It's the home buyer who pays that fee. So how fees influence housing cost. So local fees are one of the few cost drivers fully within the city's control. Even when individually small cumulative fees, meaningfully increase project costs. Fees are fixed costs. They don't scale with home size, like I said. So they can affect the ability or the desire to build smaller units versus larger units. So the categories of city controlled fees in the next slide will show you a little bit of math. We have application and review fees, which includes the planning department, engineering department, and building department. Impact fees, we just talked about, utility system and general facility charges, and then we have frontage and infrastructure requirements. Yeah, of course.
So on that last slide, you had the word fully.
Mm-hmm.
Are you implying that there are things, cost drivers partially within city control? And will at some point you have slides describing what that is?
It won't be tonight.
But coming.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got tables. I'm prepping. So the general average, and I went through different types of permits that we've processed over the last several years. So the estimated local fees for a new single family home, the application and permit fees are about $28,000. Impact fees are about $5,000. Utility, general facility charges are $25,000. And these are averages. They could be a little more, a little less. So what this means that it adds approximately $360 to $370 per month to the buyer's mortgage payment. So those fees get directly passed off to the home buyer through their monthly mortgage payment. But over the course of 30 years, the buyer pays interest on those fees. So they're actually paying an interest for the $58,000 in fees. So it's just, you know, you think about fees and you're like, okay, yeah, of course. But those do get passed on. And then there's an interest for that fees over a 30-year mortgage. So also required is infrastructure improvements. So sidewalks, frontage, on-site, stormwater. It varies wildly, but it often can lead to about 30 to 80,000 per unit, depending on the site. So it's just depends on the location and the pieces that make it complicated. So again, fees do not scale with home size. So a $25,000 general facility charge is a smaller percentage of a $900,000 home than a $500,000 home.
Can fees scale with home size? Is that legal? Or is that just a policy decision that's been made?
I don't know about general facility charges. I know for impact fees, the state is requiring that we scale impact fees for housing size, unit size. Yeah. But the general facility charge, I looked at Diane, but I'll be working with the engineering staff, Charlie Roberts, to try and get more so that I can show you all the numbers in the next time around. But again, so building a larger home that might get more money, these fees don't scale based on the size of the home. So it makes things like starter homes, townhomes, missing middle units, and ADUs complicated. Although ADUs are 50%, so.
If you go back one slide.
Of course.
Yeah, just from conceptually, the fees that we have up there, there's no profit in those fees. Those are covering costs that are being borne. And the question is, who pays for it? Does it get paid by the growth, the new homeowner coming in, or does those costs get burdened onto the existing home buyers? So that's a cost shift that we typically talk about.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, can we deliver those services at a lower cost per unit?
Yeah.
Like utilities connection. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
I can speak to it.
But that's within the, hey, can we do it for 10% less in the future? And what are those things we could do? So it's really not, there's a lot of push, sorry, ABA, that the new guys don't want to do it, but that cost, it has to be borne someplace by somebody. It's just a statement, not a question. It's not like we can make them go away.
Yeah. And I mean, our utility engineer came to my office and said, I'm nervous about what you're presenting because, what I told him is everything's on the table. Do I think city council is going to come forward and just waive general facility charges? No. But we need to have this conversation about what the true cost of housing is. And general facility charges, utility charges are a piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, and what I'm wondering, the reason I was asking is, you started way back many slides ago talking about infill development. And so, we always talk about, new growth should pay for the improvements and new things. But if it's infill, conceptually in my brain, a lot of the stuff's already there because it's filling in gaps in areas that are already developed. And so that's why I'm kind of wondering, could there be a scaled system where if you're filling in a gap in a neighborhood that already exists, do you necessarily pay the same fees when you are building a new neighborhood?
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking,
No.
is it legal? That's the first question. Then do we want to do it? And what happens if
And
we
those
do?
are that's the feedback we were wanting to get so that we can then gear the next presentation based on your feedback and questions and your interests. It doesn't mean that, and I don't want the general public to think that we're going to start waiving general facility charges and creating an impact
No,
on
like I said,
current.
my first question,
Yeah.
is it legal?
Yeah.
We got to start there. And then if it's legal, is it feasible? And do we want to do it?
Yeah.
But, we got to know that
Yeah.
before we can have a conversation.
We have services and we have utilities that need to be paid for, period. Yeah. And so what this does is it tells you all the costs and what it means to build housing in the city of Poulsbo and what it costs and why our housing is what it is, a piece of it. So another local cost driver is the infrastructure and frontage requirements. They can be, so that's like sidewalks, gutters, curbs, ADA ramps, which comes up quite a bit, stormwater infrastructure, street lighting, utility undergrounding. So frontage improvements can be one of the most expensive components of smaller infill development specifically. And their costs are highly variable and depend on existing conditions, utility conflicts, and design standards. So there's a lot of pieces that go into what the cost of your infrastructure might be. Smaller sites tend to bear disproportionate impacts because they pay 100% of improvement costs regardless of the scale of the project. And then utility upgrades triggered by development, such as upsizing water or sewer lines, can add significant unplanned cost as well. So just to give you a couple examples of what that might look like in the real world, again, I wanted to show you all properties that you even might be familiar with. This is 0.66 acres, which is just 700 feet up Moe Street Trail. And it's potentially with a short plat could have 3 to 4 lots. But it requires full street improvements on both sides because it's a corner. So that's just an example of, and this was this property owner kind of came in and poked around looking to maybe do generational housing for their kids. But yeah, that's a significant cost for 4 units to build street improvements on both sides. So that's just an example. Chris.
So with the example that you just showed with, I'm trying to understand the infill and the missing middle.
Mhm.
What category would that fall in?
So this would be, it's probably a little, and when I define infill, I said generally,
Okay.
those infrastructures there, it's not always though.
Okay.
But the intent with infill is that it already has the infrastructure, but that's not the case for all sites. So this would really just be probably just a short plat. It wouldn't really necessarily fit under either of those topics, but it could also fit under those definitions if it had to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that is also an example of some of the constraints that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Clearly.
These are the constraints that limit the ability for additional housing units to be built on this lot.
Okay. I'm still hopeful. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's the house that's there. I love that house when I drive by. It's great. And they weren't looking to tear it down. So, yeah. Yeah. So this is another real world example. This is what's referred to as Liberty Landing on Hamilton Court. This is a recent aerial. So we have 4 homes that are, I think they've sold 4 to 5 of them. Anyways, it's half a mile from downtown Poulsbo, walkable, 8 single family detached, about 400 square foot each. Based on the information I received from the developer, the offsite improvements, so the road, the infrastructure and the utility cost about $52,000 per unit. So this is an example of a project that, and this developer was pretty honest about it, that it was a passion project because his kids wanted to own homes in Poulsbo. So yeah, how nice. But he said that if it wasn't for something like that, a project like this never would have moved forward because it just didn't pencil. So that's just an example of something that will move forward for a very specific reason, but the return on investment is very slim. So, of course.
You're saying it didn't pencil primarily because of this, or this was just one factor of many that?
Primarily because of the frontage improvements added quite a bit of additional cost. And also just everything else too, the cost of construction and, once you put all the funds, the financing together and see what it costs to finance a project like this for 8 units, it doesn't make sense. So if it had been, I don't know what that threshold is. If it had been 25 units, I don't know. If it had been 50, that's something I'm not sure about what that threshold might be. And this is on the very high end of infrastructure costs. So 52,000 is very high end. So I think it was a water line, which was very expensive. So local cost drivers, incentives. This is what we're going to talk about in workshop 2 at length. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail tonight, but these can lower development costs, helping affordable and missing middle projects pencil. We can encourage, incentivize desired housing types. So what kind of housing types do we want more of in Poulsbo? We can find ways to at least incentivize that. Doesn't mean it'll get built. You never know, but you can provide those incentives that at least makes it more viable. They may reduce short-term revenue for infrastructure services. Again, if you go down the path of some of those incentives, they have impacts on revenue and infrastructure. So those are policy decisions by the council. Some of these require administrative oversight. So they require staffing to administer and manage. And do we want to take that on? That's a choice we have to make as a city. And then we have to calibrate it carefully. If it's too small to matter or too generous to be efficient, what's that line that works for Poulsbo? Just because it works for Bremerton or somewhere else doesn't mean it fits for Poulsbo. So we're always saying Poulsbo gets to still be Poulsbo. What works for us? And that's the conversation we want to have with you guys.
As you went through this, I assume everything is in the Poulsbo proper city limits and not the 98370 area
Oh,
code?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just
Yeah.
wondering that area code is it seeing development? Because I haven't seen as many development projects in.
No,
They're outside the GMA?
they're outside the UGA, so Kingston isn't that, yeah.
So I guess, yeah, so the county's not.
There is a little bit happening. I might be able
If you're
to
inside
find
the
that.
Silverdale UGA or the Kingston UGA, you can.
Oh, specifically, okay.
But there are,
The growth area allows you to do the subdividing.
there are a few examples though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You got the Growth Management Act set up the urban growth areas, and the urban growth areas is where we've designated growth to occur. And so, if you go 5 miles out of town, you're outside the urban growth area, and it's not, you can't subdivide.
So also another incentive or policy thing, annex more land, give me more land.
Everything's on the table as part of the conversation.
So that gets into one of the questions I have, and we can't set the market. We're too small to set the market.
Yeah.
We are a market follower. But is there anything at the state level when we talk about the GMA and the urban growth areas that, we have to do a buildable lands report, but as you pointed out, the buildable lands, whether it be here or in the Silverdale UGA or some of the other places, are pretty much unbuildable because we built the easy stuff. There are, however, still relatively flat land nearby within a mile or 5 of the, is there any discussion about, swapping out and saying, hey, I'm going to designate internal to a UGA that you can't build it because they're going to go someplace? Okay.
Heather has an answer to that one. Yes. And. Like improv, yes, and.
The point I would wanted to throw in there to the question is that usually with the buildable lands, there is supposed to be a market factor that's put in there. So it's not just it's 5 acres, but what's the likelihood of it being developed or redeveloped? So that's supposed to modify that a little bit.
Yeah, it's still a little bit of a math game.
So the math game shows that we can accommodate the growth that we have been allocated over the next 20-year cycle, but we don't have anything in addition to that. So this discussion will need to come probably within our 5-year check-in, if not sooner.
Yeah, and I said, I don't think it's for us to solve. I was just wondering at the state level, because a lot of towns are running out of things that are reasonably easy to build on.
They're not having those conversations.
Okay, that was really my question.
Yeah. No.
So we're forcing ourselves into these things that are very high cost because of foundation, roads, utilities to build on.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just, sorry to interrupt. But what about the new legislation that really facilitates UGA swaps?
And that's what I think Heather was going to get to is that we have started engaging in that we want to start engaging in that conversation. So the example of Jeans Lane, there's properties north of that are in the UGA, urban growth area. They're not viable as buildable land. Can we swap for more viable? We have land next to Bjorgen Creek on the southeast part of the city. Not really viable for development. So I've actually run that math previously to look at what so that's on the table. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If we could just I think that makes a lot of sense if you could get the cities to just send a report that said, here's all the square acreage that we have that aren't developable. Can we have some kind of swap program, even at a lower percentage rate or something, so that we can have growth where we're running up against the swap?
That is way too reasonable.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. That's a very reasonable statement.
And Doug, what I was gonna say, I would, if you go back and watch the county commission meeting where they voted on whether they were going to approve zoning changes for residential, because they laid out where they are on growth percentages between county, rural, and the cities, and where their numbers are. And, the reason they denied all those requests is they're not at where the cities should grow, and it's all the cities combined, and versus growing out in the rural areas. And a lot of those areas are 1 house per 20 acres. They're not 4 houses on, what was it, 1 acre?
Yeah.
That last one you showed. So yes, there might be growth, but you're still looking at a much smaller density, but they went through this level of detail of where they're at in the countywide averages. So.
And yeah, I mean, there's a whole school of thought about how growth management has led to a lot of these housing cost issues because of the inability to expand, but then you preserve critical area, so it's a balance. It's a balance of all the things: housing, critical areas, trees, climate change issues. I mean, all that's something that as planners, we are tasked with trying to find the balance. It's fun. It's fun. No big deal. No big deal. We solve it all. So I'm almost done. So you guys get to go soon. But just to summarize, we have local control factors and we have market control. There's things that we cannot control, and there's things that we have that we can move the needle on if we so choose. This was a pause point, but it seems like we've already been chatting, so I don't think we need to stop too much. So where should we focus our effort? This is where a little bit of feedback from all of you, which I think we've gotten a decent amount so far, about how to kind of focus the next set of presentations. Do we want to do areas where small changes unlock meaningful housing supply, upfront cost drivers that may disproportionately affect smaller infill projects, process improvement that increase predictability and shorten timelines, incentive structure, which we'll get to in depth on February 4th. Do we want to simplify pathways for duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes? We've talked about, Heather and I, about pre-approved missing middle type of units. We own the design for Nordic cottages. Can that be repeated in a private side as a market rate type of 8-plex? There's things that need to be discussed. Balancing flexibility with infrastructure needs. We have to fund our infrastructure and our utilities. That's not an option to not do that. Strategies that keep Poulsbo competitive regionally, although I don't think we necessarily have a decline in people wanting to move here and be here. So I don't know if anyone was downtown last weekend, but it was nuts. It was insane. So our key takeaways for tonight. Housing affordability is shaped by both market and local policy choices. Local cost drivers matter. They have an impact on the cost of housing, especially for smaller projects. Time is money in development. Poulsbo already has some tools and flexibility built into our code. We've done a lot of really good work over the last several years. There are trade-offs that are unavoidable. And as a council, you can decide what is worth within those trade-offs. That's a decision, a policy decision that you get to make. Data and shared understanding provide the foundation for our next steps. And again, this is the beginning of a structured decision-making process. So these are the programs and incentives that we're going to discuss in workshop 2. So we're going to take a break and come back and discuss all of these. No, it'll be on February 4th. We're going to be discussing these. You don't have to decide tonight, but if you have an opinion about pieces that you want us to dive in deeper, I can't go full scale down the wormhole on each and every one of these, but there's pieces that I can do that, and then just kind of surface level do the other ones. So I just wanted to get a sense of, and you can follow up with us on email, you can stop by, or you can, tell me now, but these are all on the table for discussions.
If I could ask, if you could be tomorrow, get the presentation up on the agenda. So that
So-
is this presentation on your website?
It is, yeah. Yeah,
Could you put the link on the agenda to this
yeah, absolutely.
so that we can just click into it?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know there was a slide deck someplace else. I looked at the agenda.
I did not include it in the slide deck because it wasn't quite ready.
Okay,
The next
but-
one will likely be ready ahead of
But
it.
if you do that, then
Yeah.
some of us will take a look at it and come up with,
Absolutely. But
thank you.
the presentation is available. We have a full web page for this project. So it has the memo, it has the presentation. The general community can go watch the videos directly linked from there. And we'll continue to put materials as we go through this workshop.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
On your big list, I just have a question more than a direction for next time. Do those have to be implemented citywide or?
No.
Okay, so we
And
could designate certain areas.
And
so-
that's what we'll talk about a little bit more. So like multifamily tax exemption, it could be very specific to a 3-block radius.
Well, I'm thinking back to the 305 corridor
Exactly.
slide
Yeah.
of where, specifically the steep slopes and all.
Yeah.
To encourage development in those areas, could we choose some,
Yes, and you could choose that you want to incentivize, like I said, townhomes of a certain size, and you can incentivize that through some of these programs and incentives specifically for those housing types.
okay.
So that's where it comes down to, what do we want to incentivize? Do we want to incentivize first? And then if we do, what does it look like?
So I think it would be useful from your professional experience and knowledge then of knowing what we have and what's doable if there was help, to maybe have some of that suggestion of, for example, again, 305 10th Avenue.
Yeah.
If 10th Avenue was given exemptions in this direction, it would encourage this type of middle,
Yeah.
missing middle in a positive or negative, because sure, this looks great, but I don't build houses and I don't plan things.
Yeah.
So I can say it looks great, but I don't know that I'm gonna come up with the right answer. So
Okay.
I think that giving us some lanes might be helpful.
Great.
Yeah, great point. I think maybe if it's not already on this webpage, you're going to share with us the 305 study that you did about a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
where you had the feedback about what would it take to develop some of those
Yeah.
lots?
Yeah.
Because there were some cost drivers and there are some specific actions at the parcel level, if I remember correctly.
No,
It's
absolutely.
attached to the Complete Streets project, but it's a couple layers.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I'm talking to Mr. Michael. If we
Yeah.
put that.
And so what we do want to bring back to is real world examples. So we'll take property on 305 and show you what it might look like to incentivize, and would it pencil, and I'll, work with the private development community. They've been really great at giving me information and being helpful. And use that to provide you real world examples about what it could look like if you were to do various incentives. So.
And I just want to ask, as at least part of the conversation, I'd love to hear about what our incentives have been.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I am coming in with some questions about why we're building some of the things we're currently building. And I find myself recognizing that land is a scarcity and wishing we had used some of the lots that are currently being developed in a different way. And so what that tells me is there was a thumb on the scale somewhere that pushed us in that direction. And I want to know why. That'll help us figure out what the incentives should be.
Yeah. I mean, that's a piece of that is the zoning too, and what is actually allowed on those lots. You see a lot of single family detached because that's what's permitted. That's the primary model that's permitted in that zone. So, yeah, but we can dive a little deeper into that and show that.
Also just want to toss out there, one of the biggest motivators for developers is profit. So it's what the demand is going to be is what they're going to build.
Oh,
for. So
yeah,
when
they do their
that
market
graph
study. Yeah.
that shows like what kind of families are looking for housing. They're not going to build something that's not going to sell. So they pay attention a lot to who's buying what houses are selling.
But it's been interesting to have those conversations with some of them, because you're right. You're not wrong, but there is a conversation about the large, because I said, why are the 3,000 square foot houses that are only being filled by a family of 3?
Yeah.
And to understand and have them say, well, because of some of the fees, I can make more on that 3,000 square foot house. And it's less to construct because there's less walls, less this. And you're like, oh, less walls equals less. Okay. You know what I mean? Like you start to go. And then for multifamily, the reason they build smaller units in apartments is because they can have more, it makes more sense financially to build smaller units in a multifamily product. So you go, okay, then there truly is this missing middle, because financially, I mean, none of us own property not to have equity. So developers don't own property not to make money, to have to see a return just to make it work. So, but how do we incentivize the type of product we're missing and we want? I think that's the question.
Yeah.
But to build on your point, Doug, there are actually two markets here. It's not one market. There's a rental market and there's an ownership market. And right now, in my view, they are in conflict. They are at cross purposes because there is definitely a demand for ownership, and yet we are building rentals. And that, to me, I'm not worried about the 3,000 square foot house. I'm worried about the thing that I don't have the option to own at all. And we're building a lot of things that nobody can own. I would like to see us build things that we can own. That's where the demand is, but it's not what's being built.
And on that note, noting it's 8:30, I want to say a big amen. I want to thank Nicole and Heather. That was an outstanding entry point for the next 3 series. There's a lot of homework here to do to review Nicole's and Heather's slides, but the note you just hit is perfect in the tone I'm going to be trying to work with, including the entry point to that the Blue Ribbon Commission, but I get ahead of myself. Is there any last comment or should we move on given the time? Rick?
Well, I would say, and the other corollary to that is, you brought it up earlier, those that want to downsize, but there's nowhere for them to downsize to that they can afford. So I think that's maybe a third slice of that market pie. And it might just be finances, but it might also just because
There's not a unit available.
there isn't a
to
unit available.
downsize.
So
Yeah. No.
All right, we're going to move on here. And I'll note for those in the audience, there will be public comment. So if somebody has some quick feedback, we're open to it, but you're probably half as tired as we are. So we're going to go around they do. So before we do continued public comment that I just referenced, we're going to go around real quick. Does anybody have a question or concern on any other area for the council? Looking around the table, Rick.
Well, and I brought up 911 earlier with the fireworks.
Right.
And that just, we, on that same vein, I saw a lot of concern this New Year's because of folks in fireworks behavior. And so we have a year to work on our plan for enforcement of our ban, knowing that there's already a whole lot of the year where that shouldn't be happening anyway in the city. We really only have one day where they're legal and a 12-hour window where they're legal. So I would ask that we start sooner than later to rather start figuring that out, because on the 1st, so a day when they would never have been legal, there was somebody shooting mortars off in Robb Park at around 11:30 at night. So an illegal firework in a closed park in a public land, on a day fireworks are never legal. So they were wrong in 4 different ways. And, we need an enforcement mechanism. So my concern is that I know it's going to be hard to police. We need to start planning for that now.
I'm committed to bringing it to 9/11 CENTCOM and at least putting it on the table. Michael?
We're getting phones. At some point, it'd be nice to make sure we all have each other's work number.
Yeah, we will generate that through the clerk's office. And we're going to be reviewing policies and procedures of council that lends itself right to that. Anything else from council? I'm going to call for continued public comment. The podium is available. If you would state your name and place of residence, you have 3 minutes, and we're anxious to hear from you.
Good to go? Okay. Hey guys, Aaron Murphy, Poulsbo resident since 2002, 10 years on Kitsap County Planning Commission. And I even was in the last round shortlisted for your pre-approved ADUs as an architect here in town. All I want to do right now is commend Heather and the DCD and the building department. The gross honesty and the discomfort in the numbers you saw today, and the fact that if it doesn't pencil, it won't get built. You have to make missing middle pencil, because if I can do it right outside the city limit or right outside the UGA because of some policy between city council, the mayor, head of DCD, you guys make decisions that decide whether we do business here. and we know what's needed from a construction business perspective. And everyone's having this challenge. It's not just you, it's national. Solve it, and you're going to have a beautiful city for a very long time. Thanks.
And again, calling for public comment.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Jamie Clough. I'm the Government Affairs Director with the Kitsap Building Association. Not a resident of Poulsbo, but I love this city. And I want to echo a lot of what Aaron said. Thank you to Heather and Nicole for a fantastic presentation. And I just want to say that we at the Kitsap Building Association stand to serve you all as a resource. If you have any questions or would like any more information from the developers from our end, we'd be more than happy to provide that. So please, if you have any questions or would like to have some conversations, we're here to help. Thank you.
And calling for public comment. There is no more public left, but there's fire chief and there's, okay. Returning to the agenda, are there any last council member comments? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll just say, since the fire chief is still here, I had, after our opening of the new fire station and enjoying that, I tooled through the district's website and looked through some stuff, and I had thrown out a suggestion that maybe we needed to add a city council liaison to the fire district, like we have with the school district, because the geography and the relationship is a little similar. The only problem is you all have your meetings at the same time we do. So
just for reference, Rick, I am on the strategic advisory board to the fire district.
I was just gonna say, it doesn't look like you record the meetings or make a remote option. So I would love to make our relationship stronger, but we meet at the same time. So
do you want to come to?
Yeah, sure.
Here we go. Thank you, fire chief.
Is this on? Yeah. No, Councilman Newell is part of our strategic advisory board. Jim Gillard, Poulsbo Fire Chief. Councilman Newell is on our strategic advisory board. Our meetings are available virtually, but they are at the same time as the city council. I don't know who arranged that, but it had something to do with the annexation in 2001. It would be great. The more we talk, the more we have a better relationship, the more we can coordinate. Right now, I have to commend past Mayor Erickson, Mayor Stern, Rob. We have a great relationship. Heather, her staff. It feels like we play so well in the sandbox together as two separate organizations, but we can always improve that. I need to make a better point of being at more of these because there's so much that involves public safety. But I guess I'll be speaking next at the next one of these because we are pursuing impact fees. Is that accurate, Rob? A birdie told me that I was going to be speaking next week. Okay. Because we need to fund our capital investments as well. But the more we can build that relationship, the better for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, fire chief. Any last comments? Public comment? Any last comment from city council? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.